Grand Rising. Every time that we rise, it's always a grand day. It's a grand day to rise. As I finish my typing of stuff, getting everything in play. Mm-mm. Damn, it look real bright in here. All right, cool. We got everything the way I want it. Welcome, one and all, to Friday Night Lectures. Wait for it to fill up with that vibe here real quick. Dun-dun-dun-dun-dun-dun. While we're waiting for it to fill up, I'm going to put these links in the box. But tonight we are getting into understanding thought forms, and I'm going to pose with a question I ask every other lecture. Why don't you have $1 million? If everybody, when that fill up, paste, put the links up in the joint, make that go away, take this down here like this. Okay. All right. I always ask this question. I put the links up. Check out the site, new services. I actually put the readings in. I put the readings up, the new price list for the readings. I put the new price for the consultation, including the shadow reading or whatever reading we're putting into it. But why don't you have $1 million? This becomes a question that I pose in the form of aspects of understanding the thoughts that human thought or the ego is the congealing, the stiffening or coming to this level as the aspects of the existence of the illusion. What gives the illusion its space, what it is. So I asked, why wouldn't you have $1 million? I had a self-reflection moment earlier yesterday. I've been going in my self-reflection, really reflecting on things. And I thought about a thought that I had when I was 27. I'm 35 now. I was thinking about a thought I had when I was 27. I meant 27. And I was like, I remember telling everybody I knew that every time I had a conversation with people, I was always saying, I'm retiring when I turn 35. That was my go-to every single time. I'm going to retire when I turn 35. I'm not going to be working for anybody when I turn 35. I'm going to be, when I turn 35, retired. And I didn't understand then what I understand now, in the sense of enlightenment and how much I really had to. I took the thought process of, it takes one season for one day. And I took that thought into my mind. I was like, one season into one day. And then I started thinking about the aspect of time, and time being that illusion. And when you don't pay attention to it, it just moves ahead of you. But when you're paying attention to things within the aspects of time, that sticks with you. So then I thought even more into it. And I was like, I was sitting there yesterday redoing the new stuff. I got my business card. I got my business account, all my costs for my business account for the company, all that shit in yesterday. I was sitting here, typing, and I was like, I'm 35 and I'm retired. But it wasn't the thought process of I'm retiring. The thing that stopped me from that goal, the thing that stops a lot of us from our goals, is we're looking for the mundane aspect of it. And that becomes that human thought process. How am I going to survive? How am I going to acquire my living? How am I going to survive? And then I started thinking even more and more. I was like, that's a lot of the things that I said when I was at 27, when I was at 25, when I was at 21. I didn't realize how many things I was saying based upon ego. And I didn't realize exactly, as I was having these thoughts and thinking in this manner of way, what I was exactly creating, what I was deifying. And a lot of times this becomes the thought process, and we don't realize how we get trapped in this twilight zone of that thought process of, I think, go back to that day when I was 27, and I was like, it took from 27 until now, and the things that I had to bring to the surface, the things that I had to denounce or detach from, the things that I had to understand to be in this space where I'm at right now and be fully online and still growing. This is the aspect of us taking our thoughts and bringing things from the past into this future sense. Throughout the week, throughout the week, I've been doing the Meditating Elevates. After I do it on Facebook, or if I do it on IG, I'm gonna put the video is gonna be uploaded onto the channel. And then if you're interested in the aspect of classes that are coming soon, I'm gonna have the class list of things that are gonna be the aspect that are gonna be done in the classes. I'm gonna have all that's in the works. But let's stay onto this topic. I was thinking about the thought process. A lot of us don't understand the true meaning of not dealing with things that are not on our frequency. Not dealing with things that are not on our frequency. Going outside of the intellectual aspect of, they can regurgitate information, they can say love and light, they can say peace and dark, they can say occult, they can give you the definition of occult, they can give you these definitions of these words, and now you feel like they're on your frequency, or they have an understanding of what you're saying. They have an understanding, they get a little bit, so I'm going to stay there and I'm going to watch them. But you have to remember, if I'm looking at something based on it being an illusion, it's my perception that I'm looking for. based on my perception is going to give me my perspective of how I'm going to deal with that thing. Earlier in the week, I asked the question, if you're asking the question to get a right answer, are you willing to ask a question to be wrong? Are you willing to be open enough to ask a question, in the true form of asking a question is to understand? This becomes the aspect behind those thoughts in the rigidity of being stuck within a certain emotional stunt, trying to manipulate the board by way of having everything. I have control of this board, but anything that comes onto this board that I don't have control of, what do I do next? You learn to evolve. This becomes the aspect of these thought forms. When tonight, we're going to be getting the thought forms, the understanding of spiritual attacks and psychic attacks, breaking those things down, because there's still this sense of mysticism to it. Not saying that you will not get a spiritual attack from something higher up, but if you have to understand that the only way something can attach to you is if it's already a part of you. For me, I had, for a long period of time, I had a very vengeful spirit to me. I had a very dark, I had a very low energy signature that was attached to me. And this is outside of the aspects when people start thinking about the white people are doing this and the white people are doing that. If we know that they're a creation, or they're the extended aspect of a body of light, and they're they're actually the fourth generation of light, the furthest away, if you study the aspects of the red man, the yellow man, and then the white man, the brown man, the yellow man, the brown man, the red man, the yellow man, and the white man. These are all aspects of light. So they can only create based on what's in that space, based on behaviors, based on psychology. I have nothing, once I've understood that aspect and really bed down into the aspect, I haven't had an issue with white people at that whole aspect. I haven't had an issue with them. I never really, when I really broke that shit down, I never really had an issue with them outside of a collective thought on being black in America or black in the world. That was the only, when I really thought about it. This is that honesty. When I really thought about it, I never had an issue with, I remember looking at the Lil Wayne interview, and I was like, that's almost, minus some of the other mundane shit, but the overall aspect of saying I never really had an issue. Once I gravitated and had that aspect in my mindset, I never really had an issue. I could then start the aspect of understanding. And then once I came to a certain level of understanding, creating the space to feed from. The only ones that have a fear of something outside of them have not acknowledged the fear inside of them. The only ones that have a fear of aspects of change, which is the inherent aspect of whatever, the inherent constant, the ones that have that fear of that change are the ones that are not ready to implement anything into their evolution. And that becomes behind that thought form. When you're creating these spaces, you ever had an individual around you? Here's another question that I pose. You ever had a moment in time when you felt like you were feeling super weak? You were feeling lazy. You were feeling lethargic. You were feeling like all of a sudden you just felt this wave of, you felt depressed, and you felt like it was almost depression. It was almost wallowing. It was almost self-pity, self-loathing. You just had this glooming energy of black cloud over you. And then the moment that happened, who is the person that called you? Who is the person that called you? You create that thought form in your mind. Remember, we create that. You're the creator. You create that shit in your head. So you create a need for whatever is coming into your life at that point in time. So you create it. So just like at the moment, if I sat here and was like, I'm thirsty, I need some water, I have one or two choices. Either I'm going to go grab I'm going to go grab my bottle of water, or I'm not. That's your knowing. You know you need a bottle of water. You know where the water's at. But take this example into the aspect of who calls you whenever you're in that space of mindset, whenever you're in that lowly feeling. Take this one thought into your mind and allow it to coagulate as we start to allow ourselves to, we're allowing ourselves to coagulate. So we're allowing our thoughts, we're allowing ourselves to get to that quantum process of mindset. Who calls you when you in that moment? I remember being in moments in time when I would be in that low state of mind, or all of a sudden I'd be in that low state of mind. But since I was not listening to myself, I never really understood the pattern of every time I was in a low state of mind, the individuals that would call me at that point in time. It wasn't always a bad thing or a negative aspect. It was like usually someone would call and be like, yo, you good? And be like, yeah, I'm good, man. I'm just feeling real low feeling a little bit low. So I can be honest with certain individuals that would call me. But it'd be sometimes people would call me or text me, hit me up. And I started noticing that whenever I was in that position, the longer that I stayed in that position untrained, the longer that I stayed in that position, that mindset untrained, in a depressed state, in a lower vibrational state, the longer that I stayed in that state, untrained, undisciplined, the individuals that were able to, the place, the person, place, thing, noun, or idea, whatever it may have been, that came into that space that would call me or text me, would be always of that narrative of energy. They will always be of that thought process. They would have nothing going on for themselves. They never have anything going on for themselves. So then I thought even further into it. I was like, what if I start going to the gym? What if I start going for a walk? What if I start meditating? What if I just start these simple practices in my life? What if I start changing things around? I started noticing, this is why one of the biggest things that I give clients in their first, when we're doing their 7 degrees of separation, as we're realigning, getting their chakras in order, the 7 degrees of separation, that 1 through 7, which is, when you think about 1 through 7, Rigamortis sets in at the 7th hour. So when you think about your chakra system, this being your crown chakra and your root chakra, whatever you're rooted in, that's when death sets in, or whenever your thought process, when you are dead stuck on a thought, it sets in and you're rooted in it. That's when rigor mortis sets, because now you're set in that position. You're set in that process of thought. You ain't thinking about nothing else. You don't want to do nothing else. You ain't applying nothing else to nothing else. You cannot go further than that thought. And I remember being in that position, not being able to go further than the thought that I just acquired at that point in time. I couldn't go any further. If my mind is all and everything is mental, that means every thought that I have at that period in time can create something that is undisciplined. If I have an undisciplined thought, if I have, my emotions are undisciplined, therefore my thoughts become undisciplined. to connect to those thoughts, to connect to that emotion, and now I create something that's undisciplined. The longer that I stay within that space, the more things I can create that have become undisciplined. Before you know it, my entire friend list, your entire friend list on Facebook goes from you were doing it to stay in touch with friends to you got 75 people on your friend. You got like 17 people on your friends list talking about relationship issues. You got another 15 on your friends list talking about the voting aspect. You got another 15 people on your friends list talking about this and this and that and that, because that's a representation of the undisciplined aspects of yourself. This is you realizing the aspects of that frequency that you're on in a detrimental or that degenerative aspects of staying too long within a certain space, not cutting off those ties. It's cool for one aspect to, okay, cool, I did a ritual, I did the spell, I did the ritual, I wrote their name on a piece of paper, and they're supposed to stay away from me, and cool. But you understand that magic is in the extending the intent. So if you have not built the space, you can cut motherfuckers off all day. But until you're working on the aspects that are within you, the toxicities that are within you that first attracted that thought form, you can't kill. You're still going to feed that thought form in some way, shape, or form. So we come into this space, and then you're wondering, why don't I have $1 million? What aspects in your life can stop you from achieving and becoming the goal that you set for yourself? Based on those intentions, based on those affirmations, based on setting yourself up to be, nigga, I want to be this. What's stopping you from going to that position? What's stopping you from going to that space? What entities have you created? What have you deified in your life? Because even on the lower level, there are the lower deities and the higher deities. What in your life have you deified on the lower aspect that you have not let go from? That you continue giving the aspects that you continue blessing, that you continue giving blessings to, and you keep giving offerings to. Every conversation that you have with an individual that you know it's been time done, time stamp served, you didn't got the value out of that you didn't got the value out of, you've gotten what you needed out of that relationship or whatever it may be, friendship, whatever it may be. And you continually keep offering yourself, offering your energy to this, what you have deified, in the term of, that's my best friend. That's my mother, though. That's this friend, though. That's what that's what they are, though. So you start looking at yourself over and over and over again and wondering to yourself, how long am I going to stay in this position? How long am I going to stay in this position? And what does it mean for me? What does it mean for me to stay in? What does it mean for me to stay in this position? Because the first thing that happens to a lot of people, it happened to me. The first thing that happens to a lot of us when we come into our higher self, like higher state, and we start feeding from that abundance, we start feeding from our higher self. We come into a mindset, and then you get stuck because you're not challenging yourself, and you feel like that false sense of entitlement that I've done all this work. Why can't I take this work with me? I've done all this work before. Why can't I take this work with me? Why can't I take your infrastructure of the old must fall? Olympus must fall in order for the Titan to rise. Olympus must fall in order for you as a Titan to rise. So you can't hold on to the old aspects of yourself. Most of your older aspects came based upon traumas anyway. Traumas and the traumas and things of that nature. So my mindset was stuck within the trauma when I created something, and I created it. Living within the trauma forces me to suffer. Suffering creates my aspect of me. Suffering gives me the aspect of being creating to survive. Therefore, I'm not disciplining myself. So when I have to actually start disciplining myself, those other thought forms, those older ideals of myself now exist, and they are continuously being fed. This becomes that first wave for a lot of people in their shadow work. Sometimes it's their third wave because they want to skip steps. But you're in that wave when you're in a period like right now where it's time to clean out your closet, clean out your space, the shit that no longer serves a purpose to you in this point in time. This is what you're releasing yourself from. This is what you're going to be learning from. But if I'm stuck in the mindset or in those original bonds, like how I got there, what it meant for me the first time when I first saw my first, whatever it may have been, and you still in that memory aspect, a lot of us are still in this aspect of memory. A lot of us are stuck in this aspect of memory. A lot of us are stuck in this aspect of memory of what it used to be. I've asked this question before. This is always a question I'm always going to ask. If the trauma was not present in your life, if you didn't go through the struggles you went through, if you didn't go through the stuff that you went through, would the individuals, would the places, would the individuals exist, would the places exist, would everything that's in your life right now exist? Based on that illusionary thought, would it exist? So take that thought further. Let's take that thought even fucking further. If I'm sitting in a position and I no longer am in a depressed state of mind, I'm no longer in an oppressed state of mind, I'm no longer in the struggle narrative, I'm no longer in the suffering narrative, I'm working on myself, I'm cleansing myself, I'm doing the things that I need to be doing. The old entities that I basically deified, the old entities that I brought to the surface and gave life and blew my breath into and gave life, do I need them anymore? What is their purpose? What was their original purpose? Their purpose did not change. Their program did not change. This is why when we come into certain situations and we're trying to stay there in that position and we're trying to plant a seed and we're trying to sit there and watch the seed grow, you have to remember when you're looking at it, it's only going to, if it's not doing based on your perception, then your perspective of it changes. You have to allow that. This is why it's always important to allow that aspect of space so you can actually see it actually start to do germinate, that seed to crack, so it actually starts to grow. You actually need this aspect to happen. You need that aspect of separation. We come into that space. A lot of us come into that space, come into that thought process. Yo, I'm going to help my people. I'm going to save my people. Your people are only based on, your people are going to be created based on your perception. They're going to be given life based on aspects of your perspective of them being your people. Why are they your people? What inside you are, this is where that reflects, that's, you start seeing these reflections. You're calling your people lost. You're saying your people don't understand. Your people don't want to let go of this. Your people don't want to let go of certain things. What is it that you don't want to let go of? What is it that You're constant. What is it that you're stuck on? You have to take yourself out of the seat of that human thought where I'm thinking that I'm helping my people, and understanding that your people, i.e., your thoughts, can only help themselves. Your thoughts help themselves. Your thoughts help themselves to whatever. The longer that you think about it, it helps itself to whatever's already in your, whatever you haven't dealt with, those shadows. It helps itself to the shadow, and it gives itself a shape. It gives itself an entire form. So this takes you into the space. This takes you into that mindset of understanding that degenerative nature of trying to survive. Where is your faith in everything that you're reading and everything that you're taking in when it comes time to actually apply it? This becomes that moment when you first said that you were a God. You first said that you were of that higher sense. A dog can never be a human because a dog has the mindset. A dog being a human would only think about a big ass doghouse, bones, and being able to bury shit all over the fucking house. You have to let go of the old infrastructure in order to rise into your true self. That negative gnawing feeling that gnaws on you whenever you think in a certain way, when you're in that depressed state. The longer that you're thinking about it, the more that you create the bridges to the things that are on that same level, that are in that frequency, that can create that signature in your life. So think about every time you're in a conversation with an individual, you are creating a contract. That contract has the guidelines that are building that body of work, similar to when you read the aspects of when you come down here, you get a body and you get that whole list of aspects. That's the same thing you're doing in every contract when you're technically creating the illusion of what you're saying what a friendship is. You're creating a body and if you're going in it untrained, this is the aspect, this is the difference between the aspects of trauma bonds and truly trauma bonds, which are built on the attachments, and then your soul tribe, which is actually truly built on the connection. You're just there. You ain't got to do anything. There's nothing that you got to force. When you got soul tribe in it, when you in that soul tribe mindset, you don't have to force anything. It's you don't have to force anything. If anything, you got to force your guy. You have to force yourself to stop talking. You got to force the conversation to stop because you like, nigga, I got to go to work in the morning. Man, I got to go to sleep. Man, we've been on the phone for 9 hours. Man, we've been doing this video check for this. We've been doing that. That's soul tribe. But that's also based on trauma bond, based on attachment. A lot of us come into that aspect, creating that contract, that energy signature. You have that one individual, you have those individuals that are in your life that we're talking about motherfuckers that have souls. They just don't have, they don't have the ability to charge that soul, charge themselves. Their chakras is out of alignment. Their energy is out of alignment. They have not went further. They have not went into the dark and they're scared to cut. The ones that are staying within the aspect of light, they haven't went into the darkness enough. And the ones that are within that light have not went to, no, the ones that are in the dark haven't went to the light enough. They haven't exposed themselves to that charge. So they have an ability. And it's based on those thought forms and the things in your traumas and the trauma bonding. Think about it like this. If anybody's ever seen the Jetsons, there was science in the Jetsons where George Jetson literally had a job making cogs or gears. This inherently flawed space that you're in, the reason that you stay so long in certain environments is because this is the cog or the cipher. The cipher actually has gaps within it. There's gaps and there's nexus points to be able to go out of. But through each one of these will be the aspects, the same way I'm holding my hand, this is the 5 senses, or understanding or getting your senses in order, or understanding Your senses become in order when your emotions are in balance. So each one of these aspects on this cipher, there's a different way out of each one of these ports. So taste, feel, the touch, taste, feel, sight, smell. But these are all also attached. And when you read Dr. Later Africa's book, and he was talking about we eat with emotion, these same spaces, they're also connect. Each one of these senses also have their own 5 aspects of their emotions that are attached to it. So when you go into a certain position, something doesn't smell right. It just doesn't smell right. The air smells stale, but you go in there anyway. The space it feels dark. It feels heavy. The energy feels real dense here. That's the aspect of that negativity. That's those spaces that you'll stay within this space, denying the aspects of truly understanding your senses. Everything down here is on a state of aspects of release. Everything down here is on a state of release. When you think about the inherently flawed space, everything releases from the seasons. You think about spring, summer, winter, spring, summer, fall, winter. Something has to be released in order for it to shift to the next space. So in understanding the aspects of nature, you understand the aspects of yourself that these seasons that you cultivate through, you're going to go through your spring where everything's being germinated. You're going to go through that hot, sweltering heat and that sweat to make yourself work a certain way. You're going to go through the fall when everything starts to slow down and it's coming into the aspects of what you're harvesting. And then you come into the winter when it's time for you to actually when it's time for you to hibernate. But we get stuck in the external state of being and saying, as long as I have this, I'm okay. As long as I have this, and this on the false sense of independence, but now I need the attention. Whether it's negative or positive, I need attention to see me in this light. I need others' perception. And this is what what individuals do when you're in an unhealed state, they need that attention, whether it's negative or positive, because they know they don't understand. Their light, they can only manipulate what is given to them because they have not learned how to charge that space. I remember being in a position where I would literally manipulate my way through what I needed to do. I would be manipulating my way. Most of us manipulated our ways through life just to deal with certain aspects within our life. We manipulated shit just so it would work for us. Man, I got over on this, or I did. Your whole life, if your life was based on survival, your life was based on manipulation. So when an individual comes into a space like, I don't understand how people are using me all the time, and I always feel used, I always feel mistreated, I always feel misunderstood. Motherfuckers don't understand me. They don't understand my struggle. They don't understand my pain. They don't understand what I've been through. All you're telling to yourself is that you don't understand what you've been through. You have an intellectual aspect, therefore you can regurgitate what you've been through. You can speak the pain of what you've been through. Yeah, I went through this when I was at this age, and I went through this, and I went through this, so you can regurgitate it. Since most people only can regurgitate what they've been through, and they have not broken that barrier of being honest to have true transparency when it comes to them explaining how they feel. And it's one of the biggest things I have to break down whenever I'm doing a session with a client. Discovering how they feel, I'm taking them past the generic aspect. I'm taking them past the generic mindset of, I feel sad, I feel angry, I feel this, I feel jealous, I feel insecure. It's deeper than that. That's the entity that you created. You created the identity, which is now attached to you or your handicap, because you already came down here with one fucking handicap. And that handicap takes on whatever face that you gave it. That's your doppelganger. It takes on whatever identity you give it. So your ego can take on the identity of your insecurity. Your ego takes on your ego takes on the identity of your jealousy. It takes on the identity of your sorrow. It takes on the identity of your pain. It takes on this identity. That's your handicap, your crutch, your name the fuck of that damn puppet on Batman. Neither here nor there. It takes on that identity. And remember, when you're when you're using that low aspect, when you're in a low aspect of charge, you need other individuals to provide their signature on that contract with you so they can accept you for you being in that space. Man, you got to understand, they've been through a lot, man. That's why we let them do whatever they want to do. And man, we don't bring that up. We don't have that conversation. That's not going to fucking that's not something I want to deal with anymore. I want to come into a space where I'm talking about solutions. I want to come into a space where I can disclose the issues, have that conversation, take that moment of growing, go forward, take the healing aspect, get into that deep, darker aspects of the hidden culture of my subconscious and start reprogramming it so I can actually start manifesting things without the need of the lower contract, the old contracts. A lot of us got a lot of individuals have a lot of old contracts on the table that just going to take them. That's the accountability and responsibility part of you doing your work. You become an individual based on your identity, based only on that contract, that mask that you're wearing. So when it comes time you actually wanting, okay, now I want to go do this. Why don't you have $1 million? The amount of things that I had to go through in understanding, story time, just for me to come to this space, to be 35, sitting in this space, doing this, doing everything that I do, the amount of things that I had to come through from 27, which is one of my power numbers, till now, that was one season. We're taking ourselves out of the aspect of time, understanding that everything that is in alignment, you're simply aligning yourself to it. Everything that is already there and meant for you, you are aligning yourself with it. You're aligning yourself with the spiritual aspect to the physical aspect. You're aligning these mirrors so that that energy actually comes down and produces whatever you're manifesting. But if I have my mirrors and I'm positioning my mirrors, but I have these things on, if I have all these pictures on my mirror of my identity, the things that I have not dealt with that are in between this space that I'm trying to expand, I can't expand this. I can't expand this light. I can't invoke this light, and I cannot evoke my intentions into that space so they won't connect. This is why when most people actually start doing their meditations, they do their meditations for a while, then they fall off. This is why when you start setting your intentions, you'll start setting your intentions, then you fall off. You'll start journaling, then you'll fall off because you're not getting the necessary release, because you're looking at it based on what were you addicted to previously. You're just looking for another fix. Remember, this is the whole realm of exploitation and addiction. So you're sitting in your space and you're only exploiting what you're going to get your next fix from, where I'm going to get my next hit from. So when it actually comes time for you to actually do something in that space, or you see something, everything that you're seeing, you're only using it to go back to the natural state of your identity, to keep your identity intact. You're going to manipulate everything around that space to keep that identity intact. And those individuals that are in your life that are stuck in a state of Rigamortis, they're the ones that are going to feed from that aspect of thought. They're waiting for you to say what you usually always say around that period in time. They're waiting for you to say it. They're going to wait day in and day out, month in and month out. They're going to wait for you to come to them with another problem because that's feeding them. Even if they give you information, they're not going to give you information. They're only going to give you information based on their level of light, based on that frequency, to remain in that frequency. Girl, you just got to work harder. And girl, you just got to give them some time. And man, you just got to give us some time, because no, you do not have the choice. You do not have the choice in the lesson. And I saw that it was an Instagram post. You don't have the choice of what you about to learn from that lesson. What that individual, what that aspect that's in your life means, what it actually means, what it's there for. You don't have that choice. You created that, you programmed it for that reason. You programmed your trauma, you programmed the reflections of your trauma into that contract. You wrote that contract up with them, and now it's time for you to, let me look at this contract and see if it fits for me anymore. Let me really look at this contract. In the binding of this contract based with this individual, it no longer serves me a purpose. I'm not depressed. I'm not depressed. I'm not in a bad relationship. I'm not in a bad space with a job. This individual was there for when I was in bad relationships, when I was in a bad relationship, when I was trying to escape shit. So this contract becomes null and void. But that thought form still exists. It's still there. It's still present. It's still ever so present. It just comes in the form of a new contract. Uptime for a new contract. What do I need to change just enough? What do I need to tweak just enough to keep this here? To keep myself in this position from actually doing the aspects of work that I need to do? Can I see myself going past this point? Your identity makes you feel like you're good at everything. So you can get stuck in what you're good. I'm good at this and I'm good at that. I've never been good at that and I've never been good at that. How do you know you've never been good at that if you never did that? That's the challenging aspect. We get stuck. We get stuck a lot of the times. A lot of the times, an individual will get stuck in that space being used to getting what they're getting from it. You have individuals that are in your life used to getting what they're getting from you. You have that entity is used to feeding from that space. So whenever you feel like you're down, first person that calls you. When you in that neutral state, when you right there on the line and you about to decide if you about to go forward, if you about to go back, who's the first person that calls you? The problems match the level of your commitment, or the level of your discipline to yourself. That's the vibration that's the frequency. That's all the aspects of them being on your frequency. They're still on that frequency with you. They're able to regurgitate and tell you every memory about every time in your life that you went through some shit. Like, girl, you remember when we went to this right here and this happened? Or you remember when this happened? Or you remember when or siblings, man, you remember when mom did this? You remember the fight between mom and dad? Yo, I still didn't get over that. That's the type of conversation that you need to have. Because that activates the healing process. Setting the boundaries so you can set your standards so you can actually truly fucking heal. That aspect of honesty. We get stuck in this narrative of trying to always follow everything or keep everything in a sense of following us based upon the attention of it, because we can look at narratives of, I can keep you stuck within a space and make you think about false advancement because you feel like you're in a state of, because you thought about in your mind, like, if they just do this. I remember there was one time when I was, this is back when I worked for a rest when I first came down here the first time. And I remember I worked at an Applebee's in like 2000 and I want to say 2012, 13, 2012. I was working at an Applebee's, and I remember it was my first seeing of somebody create, like I was attached to a wavelength of a thought of somebody else. And like they literally were like, they literally created a petition, a thought process in their mind that if it was a chick, she was like, if he came in here and he come in here with his haircut and he shaved, if he came in with his haircut, then because he got to come in with his haircut. That was like bare minimum, whatever that add to that space. I came in that day. That was the day I went and got my haircut. Walked in there, and that was the connection to the thought. I was in the space at the point in time where they thought about that long enough. I was already in their mind, and they created their perception of what they would do next if I was in that space. This is what you do every single day when you're inside of a space, when you're thinking about an individual in a certain manner. For most of us, for a lot of people, when you go untrained and undisciplined, this is why the healing process, the shadow work, healing process, the shadow work is so important. When you come into these benefit systems or these contracts, every contract that you get into with individuals is like a 360 deal. A 360 deal is after the contract expires, you are always back to square one. You're always back to where you started at. So there was no growth. So you could think about what happens in 360 deals. You can get a car, a house, some chains, some studio time, some bare minimum shit. But at the end of it, after that contract comes all the way back around, you back to square one. Therefore, you have to sign another deal to do that same cycle over and over and over again. So a lot of the relationships that individuals that are in are based on that 360 deal mindset. You came in with this, and this, or you didn't come in with shit. So basically, at the end of the deal, you ain't coming in, you leaving with nothing. That's that 12 by 12 mentality we've been breaking down. But you're taking yourself into that thought process. How many 360 deals are you in? Look at the relationships that you have acquired in your life. How many 360 deals are you in? How many requirements have you actually set to make your boundaries? I need individuals around me. Like, I need people around me that are always making me think, always asking questions, making me think, making me go beyond my spectrum of shit. Because the whole key of being within a constant state of gnosis is I'm always hungry for more information. So I need that shit. I need that climax, that everlasting climax that the spiritual realm only can provide. That's the ultimate fixation of me being back into my true self. That's what most motherfuckers are searching for. That's where you always getting that release. But when you sign that 360 deal with individuals, when you sign in that 360 deal with motherfuckers, you always got to come back to them the same way that you came to them the first time. You always have to be broken. You always have to be depressed. You always got to be just at the right point to get some money. You always got to be at this I'm just getting there. But the minute that you get there, the emotional overwhelm that has been wound up inside of you, that is feeding, that is suckling that weight, that is suckling at that trauma, that you've been suckling from that trauma, and you get right there to that spinning wheel that will cut that tether as you go outside of it, and it's going to respin that shit. It's going to centrifuge that shit. You in that centrifuge of a hamster wheel. It's going to cut that tether. You got a decision when you hit that vibrational peak, you have a decision whether you're going to repeat and jump back down, or you're going to keep going forward. Are you going to jump off the cliff and fly? Or do you think you're not going to fly? What is your thought process? How are you going to allow yourself to go to the next level? And this is where you have motherfuckers that have that vampiric energy. That's what they do. They're lower level vampires. At the lower level, they've become the vampire. They've become that vampiric or that succubus or that incubus type mindset. They only feed based upon their urge. So they need an urge. So they create they create an energy signature. They sign that contract with you, and they're constantly feeding from your energy. So then you're wondering why you've been in that friendship for 3, 4, 5, 6 fucking years, and now you're at a point where you look tired all the time, you look sleepy all the time, you feeling weak all the time, even though you just feel weak because you're stuck within a position where that negative energy is that weight of that negative pull is pulling you down into that space because you haven't challenged yourself to even come to that middle point. Through that middle point, you must have the transparency to go to the next side. Because the other side of that is the positive. The positive being within your shadow work. When you're looking at that line of shadow work, this is everything that happened. On the positive note, this is how I'm about to deal with it. On one side is the trauma that happened, center point, that middle point, the transparency and the honesty with yourself unlocks the way that you're going to deal with it. But you got to go through it. You've already been through the aspects of what it was. What's stopping you from going through it? What is tethered to you in that space that shows you the reflection of what happens when you don't deal with it? What was the first relationship that you saw? What was the example of your first relationship? What was the example of your first job? What was the first example of the first way that you saw money? What was the first way that you learned how to charge yourself? When's the last time that you actually sat down in front of them? I asked this question on my Facebook page. When's the last time for the goddesses that you actually sat down in front of a mirror and it was this you in yourself in front of the mirror with a candle sitting there, and you actually looked into your own universe and started programming your universe, your yoni? When did you start programming your sacred space? For fellas, when's the last time that you actually programmed your sacred space, programmed your sacred your body? That's disciplining and understanding the earth. Once you have control, once you have taken your vice and turned it into your virtue, this is the whole aspect. You're coming down here, your vices, your urges, you're turning into your virtues. You're learning how to use them on the higher level. Coming down here to try to create something, that's not going to happen. That's a byproduct. You naturally create something. I get a download, it turns into a lecture. I get a download, it turns into a podcast episode. So that's naturally going. This is the byproduct. This is the physical mirror in connection to my spiritual mirror. The more that I'm in this space, the less that I have to fend in this space. The more that this becomes, the spirit realm is visible to me, the more everything outside of me in that space becomes invisible. The physical becomes invisible. It doesn't hold any weight. I'm not attached to it. I'm of it. You're of this space, but you're not a part of it. That attachment, the trauma bonds, that keeps you a part of it. That looking at the television screen and seeing another person dying, and then someone says something to me, I'm gonna hit you with Rico. Niggas die every day, B. But yeah, man, it was one of our queens. It was one of our babies. For the baby that transitioned, they actually are in an aspect of space. They didn't have to go through the process. They didn't have to go through the process that you're having to go through. They got out clean. They were still in their goddess and they were still in their God self. So they got out clean. Only your perception keeps them locked down into this space. So the longer that you hold on to them, this is when you become the nest. You become most people that will sit there and gather around and protest. You become the nest of the energy. You become the nest. You holding on to that thought. You allowing yourself to become stiffened in that anger. You become the nest. So now everything that's based upon that needs to feed off of anger, feed off of the depression, feed off of whatever narrative or whatever space that you created, you're the nest for them to come to. The longer that you have that thought, the longer that you hold on to that human thought, the longer that you allow that shit to congeal and create the spaces of the nexus points of your ego, the longer that it becomes more of a reality for you. So when that moment of time, when that season is over and it's time to reset, your mindset is on, this is my life. I go to work, da 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 da. You just give that new life. You just reanimate it. You give that shit new life. It just keeps going. Instead of you looking at it with honesty and transparency in your fucking self and being like, you know what? I'm doing all of this right here by myself. I'm struggling to maintain. What am I really struggling to maintain? Because if the mundane aspect, you got the roof over your head, you got your crib, you got a space to put food in, you got your space. Bet. Boom. That's there. Now you're trying to create bonds, friendships, relationships, family members, and whatever the fuck it may be. What are you really struggling with? You're struggling to keep that physical mirror into to the lower level of the astral realm, the fucking asteroid belt. Where do you think you're getting your energy from? Because even the motherfucker that goes untrained is pulling energy from a source, but they're pulling it from the barrier of the metasphere that is the fucking aspect of that asteroid belt that won't allow them to go past it to get into the higher ethers. So they're still pulling energy. This is where you get counterfeit spirits. This is where the aspect of counterfeit spirits come from. I cannot do what I do. And I can't stress this enough. I cannot do what I'm doing, speaking at the level that I'm speaking, if I was pulling it from the source or a level that was on some low frequency shit. I cannot speak so freely, so vividly, so eloquently about fuck humanity. I couldn't say lines like fuck them kids. I couldn't say things like, I couldn't say fuck them kids. I couldn't say study. I couldn't say I could say it, but it wouldn't have no validity behind it. Because my mindset was not within that space. My mindset is not within a healed space. So I could speak very strong. I was speaking very strong at points in time, but I was still coming from a hurt space. So my throat chakra was fucked up. So I was speaking based on pain to people. I was speaking through pain. So when it came time to personalize it and put my story into it, I couldn't give them the full story. I couldn't give them I could not give myself the therapeutic relief of that, being able to release it from my heart, because I still needed it. I still needed that aspect. It was an easier way to deal with things. This is the aspect when you think about that. This is when you start thinking about actual manipulation. The lower level deities only can manipulate the light based into that space. And they don't have enough light, so they need a grouping or a following to help them hide behind that light. Their knowing of their ability to manipulate, or the quill off, gives them the sense of having control over the Kabbalah or the tree of light, the tree of light. The tree of light is nothing but reflections. It's reflections based on the knowledge that I already have of myself. So my Kether, or my bottom self, or my personality and my expression, these four, we just sticking these four right here, the way that I express myself, the way that I perceive myself, the way that I ground myself, is all based upon the knowledge that I have to light up these spaces. And when you really in this energy shit, you start seeing motherfuckers' energy. You start being able to taste it, feel it, touch it without even touching it. You start being able to program shit. I remember there was a thing my grandmother told me. My grandmother was like, she was having a funny conversation with my sisters, not my sisters, but my aunts and my mother. And I was sitting there playing with the cat, playing with my little her gray cat. And I remember having a conversation. They were talking, and I didn't understand it because it was going in one ear or the other. I wasn't really paying attention to it, but it stuck. My grandmother was telling them old hoodoo tricks of like getting your man to do whatever you want him to do. Like when they sleep, whisper in their ear, like whisper something in their ear. You can do that to anybody. You can just walk. You can like whisper the whispers. But those whispers create thought form. Everything that you're doing is creating something. This is how much you create. Everything you do creates something. It creates something in correspondence for it to exist on that polarity. Everything creates something. So every thought that you have, whether it's the negative self-talk or the positive self-talk, the positive self-talk, it creates spaces for you to now climb out of, which is going to make you expand. The negative self-talk keeps you in that space. So when you're looking at the individuals on the frequency around you, how many motherfuckers around you are actually giving you positive self-talk and not based on fucking ego? Most people get self-talk based on fucking ego. It's not your fault. Yeah, it is. Man, it ain't you. It ain't you. It's them bitches. It's you, nigga. Girl, it ain't you. It's them niggas. They ain't shit. It's you. Stop telling your friends. Stop telling your sisters, brothers. Stop telling motherfuckers that it ain't them. Tell them that it's them. Or are you not confident enough for the response that you are going to receive? Are you not confident enough? Are you not confident enough in the answer that you're going to receive? If you tell somebody, hey, yo, it is you, because they're going to ask how. And then that opens up the door to you. That how is you being wrong. That how is you now being vulnerable enough to get the information. Nigga, I don't know how. That's a moment of self-reflection for yourself. That's when you're going to be sitting there like, I need to reflect on why in every one of my relationships does this happen. It gets to this point and then it tapers off. Most people in the mindset that have not dealt with traumas, you have a natural sabotaging complex. So you'll let that relationship get to a certain point based on that 12 by 12 pattern. What I'm able to do, based on how much time I'm going to put into doing what I'm able to do, I'm a showcase what I'm able to do, my worth of what I'm able to do, and then this amount of time equals the result that I'm wanting. But if it's an undisciplined thought, remember, if it's an undisciplined thought, you don't get an undisciplined result. There's people out right now that have been in a position for up 10 years and they're still emotionally stunted and don't even realize that they're emotionally stunted. That is a very honest point for a lot of people, is understanding that sometimes you become emotionally stunted in the aspects of your growth based on whatever trauma you didn't deal with at whatever point in time. So you can become successful. You can have successful. You can have wealth. You can have prosperity. You can have abundance. You can have these things, but they're going to be based upon the contracts that you set on X. You're basically going to be subcontracting your energy to receive it. Most people are in positions that they're subcontracting their information to receive it. Most people cannot think within the mentality of being the ownership of themselves because they're still within a player aspect of themselves. They're simply players of the game. They love the game that they play and they love what they get from the game, the ups and downs. They've accepted that aspect in their life. Most of the times when we're in certain spaces and you're saying people they accept me for me. They accept me for me. They accept me for me. No, they don't accept you for you. Quite simply because you do not accept yourself for yourself. I just saw 3 sevens at once. You don't accept you as yourself. What they are doing in reality is expecting you. They have an expectation of you based on their perception of you. Because if they really accepted you, this is something really to think about. If an individual accepts you for who you are at that living in the moment, because to accept something, you must live in the moment. Really think about that. To accept something, you must live in the moment. You must be in the present, in the now. So expectation is based on the past events. There's nobody from my past there's nobody in my past, family included, that can accept me where I'm at now. And I can gauge that by the conversations that we would have. It's one thing to have that memory lane talk. Oh, now you want to act up. It's one thing to have that memory lane talk every once in a while. But if I'm always going into a position and we're always having this memory lane talk, yo, you remember this? And they start bringing things from the past into the present. They start bringing they're literally since they're on your wavelength, you're the creator. They're using your energy to create something in that space. This is how they start creating those issues. This is how niggas get attached to you, and you wondering why every time that you're around a certain individual, now your ex calls, and you like, why the fuck my ex call every time I'm around y'all for longer than a couple hours? Why does my ex come into the picture? Why does my baby mother, my baby father, why do these aspects keep happening to me every time I come into a position with y'all? I go back to my crib, I'm in my space, and all of a sudden now I get a phone call, or I got to deal with this, or work calls, or this happens, or this happens. Why does this keep happening? Because you're literally within this space, and you're aligned to that space. You're aligned to them. You're invoking their frequency. You're invoking your energy into that frequency. Since you haven't truly rose into your higher aspects of yourself, you haven't truly went above that line, you're still on the line, they'll always be able to pull you down into this space. And it may not be in a physical direct sense, but it'll be your energy and your thoughts going into that space. This is that aspect of when you're in that space based on the expectation. They expect you to remain a certain way because they're stuck in a certain way. They're stuck in that time loop. They expect you to stay in that certain mindset because they're stuck within that time loop. I know motherfuckers right now that look fucking bad. Because they haven't learned how to charge their energy. They just look tired. They look defeated. They literally look like the Rigamortis is set in. They haven't understood the aspects of actually charging themselves. They're not willing to accept, because in order to accept, you must step out of the boundary that was once set. Or when you're thinking about set, you must rise into your hero or your Haru or your Horus. That's your hero's journey. One main thing, I'm gonna say this because it's in my mind. I thought about this. There's no diabolical scheme other than the one that you create in your mind. The only line that has been blurred that I caught and I really thought about it. I was like, when we come here, it's our ending. When you come through the portal, this is your ending. You're no longer a god. Or you become, this is when the amnesia process of you, this is the amnesia process of you losing your abilities as a god in this space. Because there's nothing down here to cultivate it. Because nothing's at that frequency to cultivate that energy of you doing it. You can't nurture it here. So this is your ending. You're coming into your beginning. The whole narrative of this space is telling you that was the beginning. This is now the ending. If I take that one thought process and I graph that over it, they're saying this is the beginning and this is the ending. Before BC, AC, BCE, and all that shit, the beginning aspects. And then I take, if I realize that that's the under the line, this is the beginning and this is the ending. And I understand that light refracts, so everything turns backwards. Bobby Hemmett always told us you gotta turn all that shit around. Nigga, this the ending. When I was born, that was my death. When I was born, my birth was my death. And my death, just simply putting that, instilling that into your mind. There's a movie called Black Box that I'm gonna watch on Prime Video. Looked pretty fucking cool. But just take that mantra and put it into your head. Let's take that mantra and put it into your head. This is not the ending. This is the beginning. This is not the ending. I've already went through my ending. Now I'm going to my beginning. Most of us are in the middle part. We have an understanding based on the prophecy, based on the writings, based on all the information and context. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end. A beginning, a middle, and an end. For us, it's the end, the middle, and the beginning. Everything's based on that same line. The ending, the traumas, the middle point, transparency, beginning. Existing to living. I existed in this space as a part of this space to learn something from that space. That unlocks that middle point. Now I'm beginning to understand the very same space that I'm in. Why I'm here. Why I'm going through what I'm going through. Once I start removing the emotional aspect, I can actually start using my senses. I can actually start using my abilities. I can actually start using my omnipresent abilities in my senses of myself. I can actually start using my psychic abilities. Only after I've reached a certain level of healing. That's when them shits come online. It takes a lot of healing in order for you to use those abilities, because those are based in pure intuition. Your second senses, or the senses of your subconscious mind, the language of the birds, the symbols, those are all based on your second senses, your true senses of your true body, that are connected to your true aspects of yourself. But if you're going undisciplined and you start trying to use these senses, this is when you got individuals in movies. This is when you got Wait a minute. Oh yeah. This is when you're trying to become equal or equivalent to a reflection. You cannot become equivalent to a reflection. You cannot become equivalent to the reflection. So you can see this. I can see this brother over here. Yo, he got the rent. He got the car. He got the car. He got the house. He got the bitches. He got all of this shit. Okay. I want that same thing. All right, cool. Now I have to sign this 360 deal. To understand the process that he went through to get what he got. You're not coming down here to be equal to any of this shit. You're not equal to anything down here. Based on the level of you, based on the aspects of you rising into yourself, you're not equal to anything down here. You're greater than everything down here. That's why everything down here can exist. Because you're greater than it. You have the capability to create literally in front of you anything that you desire. Use it in the terms of actual enlightenment. That becomes that real shit. Motherfuckers try to do this ego grooming shit. You're trying to groom your ego, so you're manipulating shit. So you're doing what you're thinking at that highest level of peak. You're thinking that's a high level spell when it's basically low level shit. I wrote it down and I did this and I did this and I did this. That's a training exercise. The whole goal is to be able to say the spell in your head and you already have the symbols within your mind. You already computed the symbols into your mind. So you simply just think and it happens. Only when you're trying out new shit that you have to be like, you know what? I got to try this new thing, but I got to study first. That is you always being hungry. That's you studying all and following none. Because you're always in a constant state of taking in new information. Damn, I ain't never tried it that way before. Let me see what that looks like. Let me break my spell back down. Let me break down my spell. I have my symbols. Let me write my symbols down and see if I can put them into this code. Most individuals are scared to actually do this aspect because it takes a lot more discipline. It takes more discipline to do what you want than to do what you can. It takes a lot more discipline to do what you want than to do what you can. Most people in that mindset of doing what they can, they'll simply wake up. Nothing wrong with it. They'll simply wake up. They'll put on their uniform. They'll go to their job. They'll do their job. They'll come home. They'll sit down. They'll watch TV. They'll do the normal things that they usually do in their normal aspects of their day. And then they say that their day is complete. Player mentality. Never really taking that in between time to actually learn how to become the coach. In order to become the owner, you got to become the coach first. So you got to start coaching yourself, coaching your subconscious. That's the aspect of grooming and cultivating your purpose, because all that's already there. Just you simply wanted to be in that space to actually start coaching yourself and just coaching yourself and training yourself. That's this one key aspect that's going to show you why you're. This is when people ask the question, why don't our people know all this? And why don't our people accept this? They're not willing to become coaches. They're not built into the aspect of becoming the coaches. They signed a deal and they're used to their deal. They've been getting what they've been getting from their deal. They like their deal. Let them like their deal. Let them like their shit at their level. Don't use that. Don't use shit that's in a lower format to be the reason where you're not at where you're at. Because that's when you get stuck in that aspect, or you create the entity called time. You create the handicap called time. Now time is your new crutch. Time is your new handicap. Your identity is based on time. So now you're spending time giving offerings to make yourself fit within the time, fit within the trend, stuck within glamour. All of these are the entities. When you study the work, it was actually funny. I was reading The Serpent Grail before I went to bed the other night. And it was funny because matter of fact, I'm gonna go get the book. Just be having books all over the fucking house. There's two aspects that are within this book that were very interesting to me that I picked out. The first one is the aspects of understanding the mother in the underworld, which that is the space that we're in. How did the concepts of the world mother and the underworld arise? The reasoning in the ancient... No, that's not it. It was just funny to me when I read it. As writer Gary A. David tells us, the Hopi word for the underworld is twat. Also spelled tuata. Twat means hallucination, mystical vision. We noted that the interest in the twat was in the spelling employed by E.A. Wallace Budge, former director of the antiquities at the British Museum for the Egyptian underworld, or the Dawat. When I read that, I had this funny ass moment in my mind. Like I had one of them little mannish moments, like go back to the days, back in the day when I don't know if motherfuckers saw porn like that. But like when you saw porn and you saw the white girl doing porn, and they were like, ooh, twat. You want to hit this twat? That shit hit and clicked online. I was like, wait. Twat means underworld in Hopi. It just clicked before I read it, and then I went back to that. I was like, that's the aspect of when you're looking at the aspect of the program of the words having that meaning, that etymology becomes important, but you're not using it in an aspect. You're not questioning. This is where questioning to understand overrides questioning to be right. Questioning to try to prove an argument. Questioning try to improve an aspect of a debate. Like, that's understanding those aspects of those frequencies of those words that you frequently are using and you get stuck in. Literally, you walk around creating shit. You are the creator. You are the titan. You are the chaos being. So you create deities every single day. Sometimes you don't even realize it. Sometimes you're sustaining or reinforcing a deity that you called your mother. When I did the breakdown and breaking down the walls on the podcast this week, think about what the great mother, the draconian, you think about Tiamat, the destroyer. You think about Kali, the destroyer, the mother goddess, the mother of destroying. So then when you look in understanding who is the first person that taught you an aspect of destruction, and then I'll think about my mother, and I think about the things that my mother did. I think about the aspects of what my mother did, what my mother has done, what my mother had did, and how she destroyed aspects of my godhood. that's hot, that's cold, these aspects. She gave me things that were destroying my godhood, but were creating my identity or my humanity. So in that same line, my mother was the Kali archetype, or that Tiamat archetype of energy that was in my space. This is how you start to interface your energy of yourself into your space when you're calling these things. You're giving them faces, you're giving them identities, you're giving them entire bodies. And then you wonder why you feel a certain way towards certain things that you feel like I shouldn't feel that way towards that because of a lack of understanding, that fear aspect. And then you get stuck. You get stuck within that Sifra, and we're going to go back to the aspects of time. You'll get stuck trying to make yourself, as long as when I get all of this shit in order, then I'm going to start doing what I need to do. So when I start my beginning, when I'm stuck in the beginning, this is my ending. I'm always going to be searching, but I'm never going to find the begin. I'm never going to find what I need to find. I'm never going to be able to define my middle point because I'm approaching it from this is my beginning, my birth, my troublesome childhood, everything that happened to me. That was my beginning. That was your ending. That's why when you can't consistently come to your middle point and actually have honesty with yourself, because you're looking at it as your beginning. And since you're thinking of this as your beginning, everything else outside of that, your ego is going to think that's going to be the end. I'm jumping off the cliff. If I jump off this cliff, I'm going to die. If I do not have these aspects if I do not have these conduits within my life, I'm going to die. What am I outside of these things? You're living. What am I outside of time? I'm living. What am I outside of my mother's taking $20 from me when I was 8 years old? I'm living. Because I'm no longer stuck on this singular. I'm no longer stuck on this singular perception and now projecting through that singular projection. Think how small that atom is, that that atom that you created, that thought you created. Think of how small it is, but think of how much power it has, because it's not small. It was a small thing that happened to you. It's concentrated. The longer that you literally concentrate on something, the more powerful it becomes. It doesn't have to grow. You give it the illusion of growth, but it's actually constricting because you're putting your focus into it. That's when you're focusing a laser. It's a beam that goes like this. It's you're focusing on your energy into it. So you're constricting all of your energy into that thought. So now everything has to fit through the eye of this needle, or I can't accept it into my life. I can't accept it. I can't accept it into my kingdom. I cannot accept it into my kingdom because it cannot fit through this needle. But the longer that I concentrate on it, the more it actually can start streaming through this space. That fiber optic cord, in order for me to create my entire illusion. Set based in more constriction. Everything that you're doing everything that's done at this level is based on constriction. Everything within that 12 by 12 pattern is based on constriction. Now it's a restriction, now it's constricted. But since you're always in a state of constriction, you'll always look for a release. But the release but you're only looking for the release or the fix. Just a little bit. Anything's better than where I'm at right now. I know I got to go back to that because those are my beginnings. No, those are your endings. You keep trying to go back to your endings. You keep trying to bring memories back from your endings. That's why it has to repeatedly keep being said in order for it to exist within your present, because it's your ending. That's your future. If you want to look at, if you want to take it in that sense, that's your future. All of your memories, those are your future. If you don't deal with your future, they will always be into your past. They will always become your past. You'll always live in the past. You're so far ahead that you're so far ahead that you are behind. Your middle point, that now point, that's your presence right now in this moment. So you have a decision. Either I'm going to live in my past, I'm just going to keep going back in that circle, going back this way, or actually you're going back this way. Never eat slimy worm. For me, well, I'm going to do it this way. You're supposed to be going west. So you're not incarnating. You're not reincarnating. Because if you keep going back in your past, guess what you keep doing? You keep reincarnating. You keep coming right back to this now point, that 360 contract, instead of hitting that 180 deal. I'm hitting 180 deals. Everything that I'm doing allows my energy to actually keep arcing. And I keep hitting those arches. And I keep hitting this middle point right here. And I can sit right here in this middle point, and I can slide back down because I know I'm coming back to another point, and I'm coming back up, and I'm accessing higher levels of myself. That's that rain. This, whenever you think about the aspects of seeing rainbows, and the rainbow is always going to point you to that pot. When you look at it, study leprechaun folklore, I'm always filling up the right cup. I'm no longer stuck within this space of this emotional cup. Your cup can be overflowing, and you can get some things out of this cup. You can get some good independence. You can get you can get that job. You can get that job. You can get that car. You can get that house. You can get whatever you want, but you'll never be fulfilled because you're taking in reserve from an already overflowing cup. That cup that has all of those traumas in it, has everything that is based on a lack of knowledge or based on ignorance or your lack of knowledge of understanding. Studying the Gnostic text, sin is the byproduct of ignorance. So when you think about I remember when I was in catechism, they talked about the sin cup, and that sin cup would be full. They're talking about your emotional cup. This cup is a lack of knowledge. Sin simply means a lack of knowledge. So me not acknowledging, or my lack of knowledge, my byproduct of my ignorance, of not understanding, that's what my cup is filled with. So everything that I'm connected to is based on a lack of knowledge or that blissful ignorance. How many people in your contact list right now? Whatever the number of people that are in your contact list. Now, how many people in your contact list can you call right now and we're going to use the aspects. How many people in your contact list, if you cannot change your tire on your car, do oil change, do whatever, how many people in your contact list could do that? Or they have the information to get you to somebody that actually can do it for you. How many people in your contact list, if you were in a certain situation where you needed a space, that you actually could go there and it would be a sense of recharging, not a sense of escaping, but a sense of recharging. This is when you start understanding how many of the bonds that you have created are based upon trauma and how many are actually based on true actual connections, where you can go to that space and you actually are renewed, or you're actually charged and you feel like you can do damn near fucking anything, as opposed to you going to this space based on traumas and you're always talking about the same old things and there's no solutions within that space. That's the honesty with yourself that you need to have. This is when you start making those separation plays and you start taking your obsidian and you say, okay, I'm cutting these ties. And you take that meditation with your black obsidian and you're like, All right. I'm cutting the cord. I'm cutting the umbilical cord to what was nurturing me based upon my trauma and filling me with the poison or the toxin. That's the childlike mindset. That's the childlike mindset based upon their identity and not the childlike mindset based upon the inner child. There's the childlike mindset and then there's the inner child. The childlike mindset is observed by the inner child because the inner child learns how to manipulate or change the childlike mind, being able to advance or expand the childlike mindset. For a lot of individuals, you're in a childlike mindset based upon that trauma or whatever had you locked into that space. So you're in a childlike mindset. And you're locked in a childlike mindset because you haven't been able to put your inner child to rest, allowing it to rest, allowing yourself to take over to initiate the healing process. The child cannot heal itself. It needs the aspects, it needs the maternal or the feminine aspect of the energy. But you'll stop at a certain point. It's like I was watching House today. I was watching House the other day, and if anybody's seen House, oh damn, all my Skittles fell. If anybody's seen House, you've seen how in the first aspects of the first season, Foreman's whole thought process was to become House. But towards the end of the season, I think it was like season 6, 7, and 8, he wasn't being groomed to be House. He was being groomed to understand the knowledge of House. And his issues with not being able to attach to any of the feminine aspects of energy until House was fully removed or the knowledge was removed, he had to move off of his own wisdom and connect to the feminine aspect. So his mindset was not to become House or the knowledge. His aspect was to become Cuddy, or was the aspects of the feminine or the wisdom, nurturing the space. Your goal is to become the spiritual counterpart or the feminine aspect in nurturing the space with the wisdom. Your wisdom allows you to guide your inner child. Now you're guiding your inner child into the new knowledge. That's why that first aspect, whenever you're saying, that first thing, when you're setting your first intention and you're having that apology, you're apologizing to your inner child or your subconscious. You're apologizing to your subconscious for not knowing what you know now, but I'm opening myself up to the aspects of I'm going to take over and provide the knowledge. So then in that circle, as I'm circling into that space, now I'm becoming the knowledge, I'm becoming the wisdom of the knowledge that I take in. And that becomes hard to do when you're stuck around individuals that are not promoting you to actually charge yourself. This becomes the issue when you have things around you that are only giving you suffering versus pain. There's a difference between suffering and pain. I go through pain 4 days a week, 4 or 5 days a week at the gym. 30 minutes on the treadmill before I start a workout, 30 to 45 minutes of a workout, then 30 minutes on the gym after that. 30 minutes on the treadmill after that. That's my hour and 45 minutes of pain. But that pain, in that pain, or that trauma, the trauma that I'm putting onto my body, a controlled aspect of trauma. Trauma is not good or bad. It's positive and negative. This is how you start looking at your traumas. Through that aspect, I'm programming myself for the day or for the week or for the moment or whatever. I'm programming myself forever. I'm programming my body for whatever aspect of time. Because in that space, I'm using that on I'm a multifaceted being. So whatever I use is on a multifaceted level. I have layers. I'm learning how to remove these layers and to understand them. So when I bring them back together, I can focus and concentrate. That I'm now focusing and concentrating because all of these layers are based upon my discipline. So whenever I have a moment where my discipline is slight, like a cheat day or whatever, or thought about a cheat day, before when I was going to the gym, I would go to a certain point. I would get to a certain point in my mind. I would trick myself and like, nigga, I can fit these pants or I can fit this shirt or whatever. And then I would start saying to myself, I don't have to go to gym. I don't have to go to the gym this day. I'll take this day off and then I'll go on Friday will be my last extra day. And then since I convinced myself of that thought and I kept that thought in my mindset, I would go forward and I would do that for a little bit. But then I would come back to that same point and I would have a choice whether to expand or contract. And I would contract into saying, well, I've done this workout for this many days. Now I'm going to go down to this many days. But I wasn't doing it in the aspect of expanding. I'm doing it in the aspect of constricting. So when we start doing this work, when you're doing this work to yourself and you're studying your blueprint, which is your natal chart, and you're studying, you're taking your natal chart and then you're opening up books on astrology, and then you get your natal chart, then you grab a book on astrology. This book makes more sense once you have the blueprint. Because at first, you read a book on astrology, the first thing you're fundamentally going to go look at, for example, I'm an Aquarius. That's my sun sign. So I'll go look at Aquarius. Damn, I got all the information I needed on Aquarius. All right, cool, I'm good. I ain't got to do nothing else. I'm going to put everything that I'm doing based on this one concentrated thought process of, oh, I'm an Aquarius. But it's not until, okay, cool, I'm an Aquarius sun, I'm a Leo moon. So let me go look at the aspects of the Aquarius sun is my identity. My Leo moon is my subconscious. So let me go look at the aspects of the Leo in terms of my subconscious. So now I can go look at the aspects of Leo in my subconscious. Now I have a deeper understanding of my subconscious mind. Now I know now I have a better aspect of taking in more information. Yeah. And I'm like, nigga, now it makes sense. Because I'm taking it, because I'm not questioning based on being right. I don't care about being fucking right. I'm a fucking scientist. I'm an occultist. I'm looking for the contradictions at all fucking points in time. I'm a psychologist. I'm looking for the way to map shit together all the fucking time. That's what I am. That's what the fuck I do. That's what I do for a living. I psychoanalyze everything, but it's not on the aspects of, that's one thing that I had to learn in my overthinking. I couldn't psychoanalyze properly because I was overthinking. My overthinking became my handicap. So as long as I'm overthinking, I never make a move. As long as I'm overthinking about something, I never make the move I need to make. So why am I so passionate at points in time? That's because my rising sign is Scorpio. So I'm always in that sensual, because that's a water sign. So now my sensualness is in my water. My fire or my passion is in my subconscious of my Leo. My identity is my Aquarius, so that's my ability to stay detached. My North Node is Gemini, so I look at those aspects. My South Node, or where I'm coming from, is Sagittarius. So I look at my Sagittarius and I understand why I was so stuck on certain things. Even though I was really efficient and shit was working for me, I was stuck to a certain pattern. But until I understand why I'm stuck to this certain pattern, oh shit, that's what the Sagittarius is known for in their aspects of the chart. These are the aspects when you start this is when you truly start breaking down yourself, and this is self-reflection. This is the self-evaluation. That's the self-reflection. That's true self-reflection, not overthinking of an issue. Why do I not have enough money to go to the beach when I want to go to the beach? That's mundane, low-level shit. You're just overthinking a human thought. So you're basically taking something that's giving you no flow or no rhythm. So when you look into your space, what in your environment has no flow or no rhythm is only going to point A and point B. I went to point A to point Z to quadrilateral 6.5 to 22.f. I've been in all of those spaces. And I love exploring those spaces. That shit's fun. This shit's that once you're doing that work, you see how fun this shit is. I looked at an entire season from 27 to 35, now being 35. And I can say that, yo, I have a company. I have an entity. I've created an entity that I now stand above, and I stream my different streams of light out through different concepts, through these different spaces, and I make different connections and different moves. And through those lights, through those sublights, now I create more lights. And I build more aspects to become in contact with me. So I've built natural boundaries. There was one thing I always said to my uncle always told me. He was like, yo, it's only free until you've learned it. It's only free until you've learned it. Once you have mastered it, you now can put the price on it. It's only until you have mastered it that you can put a price on it. So I remember back in the day when I was sitting there, and I remember I was first getting into astrology and shit like of that nature, and studying my natal chart and the different aspects of the tropical and the aspects of the positions within the Vedic charts. And I was sitting there and like I would ask people like, yo, what's your birth sign? And this, and this. And I would sit there and I would go through the book and I would go through the process, learning it and telling them things about it. And then once I mastered that craft, I now created this new Sifra. I created a new planet in my world. To get to this planet, you got to invest what would be the $45 to invest for a ride and to come explore this planet with me. Take this walk with me. That's you working on your gift. That's you cultivating your talent. That's me stepping outside of a box, stepping outside of that box, and now I provide that as a service. That's a planet. This is the investment to get to this planet. This takes you out. You're shifting yourself into the alignment because you're already everything that you need to be. But you have to remove these filters that are locking your energy into that space. That are locking you into like, maybe I can't do that, or maybe I can do this. Because you want to do it based on the end to the beginning. Or the beginning to the end. My beginnings were this, and I don't want to go back to this. So if I'm going towards the ending, why would I need to be consistent? What's the point if it's all going to end anyway? Now you can start actually understanding the process of thought when people are stuck within their ending. The reason your lack of confidence is because your format is based on beginning to end. You're switching your format from ending to beginning. That's the shifting of poles. You're shifting the polarities from that was the ending, this is the beginning. Since I'm always working on my craft and I'm working on my purpose, I'm always in a new beginning. This shit don't end. Knowledge doesn't end. The light doesn't end. Knowledge is infinite. You are an infinite being. If you are an infinite being, that means you have no ending. If you are an infinite being, that means you have no ending. So how could you be focusing on how are you focusing on an end if an end doesn't exist for you? You've already done the ending. If I focus on the end, I'm always going to come back to the end. If I focus on the trauma, I'm always going to come back to the trauma. That's the synonymous link. Stop thinking about it as your fucking end and stop thinking that as your fucking beginning and think about it as your fucking ending. That is the killing of your humanity. So most motherfuckers going through the traumatic event that's the aspect of killing your humanity. Why do I want to be human? If I'm not human, I must remove all aspects from myself that make me human. So if I'm still going back and forth battling that black power and black, I was watching, and the funniest thing about the aspects of information, when you are open aspects to that knowledge, you'll get it from all sources and all sites. I actually have a story that I'm gonna talk about with my pops, but I'm gonna tell this story first. I was on Instagram, and it was funny. I was on Instagram, and I came across an Umar Johnson interview. I don't know how recent it was, but it was an Umar Johnson interview. And he said, and it just made sense, because I'm not looking at him based on this nigga still ain't built a school. I don't care nothing about none of that shit. But he said, you don't hear any other, because you can tell he's in that, so it don't matter. But the information made sense. I was like, nigga, that's right. It simply reinforces. Once you're starting to get this information, this reinforces your going forward. Fuck humanity. He was like, you never hear any other race or reflection of light talking about it's pro-Asian, pro-Arab, pro-anything. It's only in our mindset that we got to say that we're pro something or we're pro something. And remember when I told you about the aspect of you thinking that you're being productive, you're actually being reactive, because the root aspect of productivity is pro, which is going to proactive. So if you're doing something in response or in reaction to something, you're only being reactive. So the thought process of that 12 by 12 mentality that you get stuck in, the beginning of the week to the end of the week, this is the beginning of the week. This is the beginning of the week. I've had an understanding that when I worked in restaurants, if you worked in restaurants, your weekend was the beginning of your week. Your Monday and Tuesday, that was your weekend. So I was always in a space that was breaking my mindset from understanding what the fuck motherfucker said the beginning to the end was. I knew my Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, that was the beginning of my week. And I knew my Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, those are the end of my week. Those are my weekends. So my mindset was already within the space of saying, damn, nigga, I'm in the space. I have the intellectual aspect of the information. I can regurgitate this information, but I'm not living I'm not living the information, not in the content of how I should be doing it. When you think about the aspects of individuals being around you and that frequency that's become detrimental to your fucking health, how you survive will always be detrimental to how you rise. You lived in the survival complex of, as long as I'm suffering and getting something out of the suffering, I'll continue to suffer. A dumbass can say, I don't even like the comment when motherfuckers say money can't buy you happiness. And I'm not trying to buy happiness because I'm already happy. I.e., I'm already happy, so I'm aligning myself to my abundance. So I'm not going to be in a poverty-stricken mindset so I can create anything that I want. There's just certain things and certain aspects that you start looking at that this is the questioning everything. You're not questioning to be right. You're questioning to understand, to go deeper into the understandings of that space. I'm not questioning things to bolster an identity. I'm not questioning things to bolster an identity or stay a certain mindset for the rest of my fucking life. Because I'm not focused on the end. I'm focusing on always re-beginning. This is when you look at motherfuckers that get into their 40s, mid-40s, and they have midlife crisis. Because now that they have, this is the truest aspect of ego. Now that they have the money, and they have the presumed time, they have the money handicap and the time handicap. Now they're saying, now I feel like I'm going to go get that car. I'm going to go get that house. They only expire to some physical shit. When your mindset is stuck in, once I get this done, then I'm going to do this, the only thing you're going to gravitate towards is physical shit. Now that I got my job and they gave me a certain amount of hours, you're just going to be waiting for a certain amount. Now that I got this, I'm going to go get a television. I'm going to go get rims on my car. I'm going to go get this. I'm going to go get my nails done. I'm going to go get my hair cut. I'm going to go do this, because you're settling for physical, mundane shit. You ain't challenging yourself to go past the level where you at. I ain't been to the barbershop in a month now. I don't need to. I wear a fucking hat most of the time. And then when I'm either wearing a hat or I'm wearing something around my fucking head anyway, if my hair grow out, oh shit, nigga, I'm just gonna get shit. By the time I was having more luck, nigga, everything goes into your favor. When you're working on yourself, the internalizing aspect of yourself, everything comes into your favor. You can use everything into your fucking favor. You learn how to feed from every aspect. Thursday, after I was done at the gym, the sun was shining. The sun was shining nice and right. I was like, you know what? On the way to my house, there's a graveyard. Nice in the graveyard, there's a graveyard sitting there. I went and I stood in the middle of the graveyard. I stood dead center in the middle of the graveyard. I gave thanks to the spirits that control the graveyard, the grounds. I gave thanks to the aspect. I stood in a space. I did the aspects of everything I needed to do. My actual first time actually doing a conjure in the graveyard was actually fucking cool during the day. And I stood there and I looked directly at the sun and I just breathed. I just took in all the energy that was inside of the space. I just absorbed all of the energy that was in the space while standing in the graveyard. This was a test for me because now that I know that I can go into this was like the level up of my test, because I was already used to going into spaces like going into the gym. I'm on the gym, I'm on the treadmill running faster. I'm doing my reps are getting harder. Everything that I'm doing, I'm extending. My recovery time is lower because when I go into the gym now, I'm open to the energy and I'm feeding off everybody. I'm literally feeding off everybody's energy. But my body, my auric field, naturally, since my auric field is stronger, I can naturally take in the energy and the insecurity, the jealousy, and all the other shit falls off. I can go into the space, kill my workout. I'm in my zone. I'm setting my intents. My affirmations are set. I'm in the zone. Eyes closed on the treadmill, running. I stand like I go straight to the same like two or three treadmills that are right there in front of the sun. Now that the sun coming out, and I sit there and stare at the sun and I run, bouncing in the sun, just bouncing, running in the sun, allowing myself to absorb all the energy within that space. Everybody's high aptitude of trying to get their workout. I'm just feeding off their energy. And I'm cycling energy back out because I'm watching this Thursday when I was in the gym. I'm sitting there. It was funny. It was like this Tamahu dude was standing over on this treadmill, and he got on the treadmill the same time I did. And no, he was on the treadmill before me, and he was at first walking. And then as soon as I got on the treadmill, started my jog, then I started my run. And I'm just sitting there running. I run 5 minutes on, then I go down to a jog for about 3 minutes. Then I go back to a run for 5 minutes, just building up my stamina in that space. And I'm watching. Then in my peripheral, seeing him, I see him trying to remain running the entire time. Now I've noticed this dude before. At first, all he would do was walk, but now he's beside me. It's like inherently my energy in the space literally shifts reality. That becomes a reinforcement. That becomes reinforcement of your sign of your power. When you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, everything is in your favor for you to look at it as a reinforcement of your power. Everything becomes reinforcement. If you're doing the shit that you're supposed to be doing, this is going to happen. If you're doing if you ain't doing what you're supposed to be doing, that's going to happen. Either you're going to be clearing your karmic debt or you're going to be adding to your karmic debt. The individuals that cannot charge themselves, they'll always add to your karmic debt. The people that you always want to stay around and have nostalgic feelings with, they're always going to be adding to your karmic debt because they're going to bring another issue. They're going to bring another thought into your spectrum. Your auric field ain't strong enough. So now you feel like now when you come home, you wonder why your voice is different. You wonder why you wonder why your voice is different. You wondering why you eating the wrong food. You wondering why you ain't ate a cheeseburger in 3 fucking months, but all of a sudden you want a cheeseburger because you're feeding their deity or that level of energy that they pull their energy from or that counterfeit energy. You felt in that space, you felt the weight come down, but the weight that came down wasn't true aspects of your true energy. Because now you feel that you're at a disenfranchised. Nigga, I don't know what the fuck's going on anymore. I learned that shit a long time ago when I was at first going to my mother's house. And after about 15, 20 minutes being at my mother's house, I think the last time I went to my mother's house, 15, 20 minutes at my mother's house, the energy shifted and everybody got antsy. That Sifra, that antsiness, everybody had anxiety, this saying shit out their mouth, and the spirits are heavy with me. I brought my energy, I brought my spirits into that space. My spirits are doing the work that they need to do to keep me protected. So they're making individuals say the shit that they need to say. How would we use the energy around us to our advantage? I remember you said we can use everything in our favor. The main key aspect of using the energy in your favor. The first key is going to be in your shadow work. Remembering that, taking that mantra in your mind that everything around you is a reflection of you. So when you're seeing things in your environment, remember everything is a reflection of you. That's that first major key, setting your intent. Setting the intent to understand and become open, and setting that affirmation of everything around me is a reflection of me. I'm open to everything around me being a reflection of me to teach and show me things. I have no ownership of anything around me. The only thing I own is my own reaction to the stimuli outside of me. Speaking this mantra into yourself and going through the protocol of allowing the first aspect of things coming into your favor is going to be from this space of, what is this showing me? What is this directly showing me? Everything around me is now then in my, now when I look at everything, I'm not questioning based on being right or based on any answer that's going to reinforce me staying in that space. What I'm doing is I'm questioning based on deeper understanding. That's one key aspect of everything being in my favor based on my shadow work. This is the example. That actually leads into the story. My pops one time told me, this was like years ago. My pops told me, he was like, you have the ability to see the truth in people, but you don't have the ability to protect yourself from seeing the truth in people. Later on, this old lady came to me. No, it was an older lady. She was like, she just came out of nowhere. I was at a gas station. She was like, you can't let things get to you. And like that old lady was, I don't know if she was walking, driving, or what, but I looked up and that bitch, she was gone. That's how I knew the spirit came down. The spirit came through and was like, drop that information to me. So that connected to that. Later on, in my aspects of my shadow work came through, I was like, I remember I was saying this like it was scripted in my mind. It was like scribed into my mind, my subconscious. I would just say, like, I got the ability to bring the truth out in people, whether it's the negative or the positive. That's the aspect. I'm accepting whatever it is from that negative or positive, whether with the truth coming out of them, what they truly are at that point in time. It's only up to them on what they do next. I don't care. Bringing things into your favor is the key of using yourself and building those boundaries. Remember how I've said before, everything has a positive and a negative. Everything has a correspondence to positive and negative. So the most negative aspects in your environment, job not going well, relationship not going well, all these negatives, whatever the negatives, they still serve you a purpose. You're opening yourself. You're going from bad and good to negative. You have to shift from bad and good first to negative and positive. Does it serve me or does it not serve me? This becomes your new compass. The compass of a God is different than the compass of a human. The compass of a human is good and bad. Good and bad, right and wrong. That is the compass for humanity. Good and bad, right and wrong. If it's good, then it's right. If it's good, then it's right. If it's bad, then it's wrong. You're shifting yourself into the aspect of, does it serve me? No. Is it negative or is it positive? Does it serve me? Does it not serve me? This changes your compass into the aspects of, it may be negative in my life. It's a negative aspect of my life right now, but it's serving me a purpose right now in this point. This is me bringing it into my favor. So if I look at my job, I'll use that example. If I looked at my job now is a negative that does not serve me a purpose. But at a point in time, it was a positive because it serves me a purpose. But in order for me to look at it from both sides, it was still negative. I have to see it as equally negative as it's equally positive. It was negative because it served the purpose in my training into understanding promotions and numbers and making budgets and balancing things that I can use into the future sense of myself. But it served as a purpose of being positive because it sustained my ability. It was positive, so it was right. So I did everything based on that narrative. As long as I have my job, as long as I keep my job in check, I'm good. I have an escape. Your job becomes an escape. So it serves a purpose. It's in your favor as long as it's giving you what you need. As long as everything within that space is good. This is the discipline. This is the aspect of doing what you can. Based on my job, I can pay my rent, pay my electricity, pay my bills, pay the car note, pay the insurance. It makes sense. But I have to see it as negative. I have to be able to pull this aspect into the negative and still make it make sense for me. That way I'm not, remember how I've talked about the connection and attachment. I become attached to this positive sense based on my identity. My job became, Bobby Hemming broke that down. My job became my culture, my job became my career, which became my culture. So now this is my culture. So I can't see anything past this because that's that aspect of that middle point for myself. It's like, what do I do after I don't do this? What would I be without my job? That's why you hear motherfuckers like, when I remember I used to relish in the aspect that I never was out of a job for longer than a week. After my 5-year mark of working at a job and whatever happened, whether I quit, they said we had a separation. When I'm in my okay, we separated. I don't give a fuck no more. Bye. I don't care. Bye. Don't care. I never went longer than a week without a job. The last job that I had before I said I'm doing this full time. Yes, you have to. Yes, you have to indulge in the negative as well as the positive, because everything you're taking your mindset. This is going to help you take your mindset out of good and bad. Like, take the aspect of, for me, when I was 16, 17, 18, and I was around my father, his life was in the darkness, which would be negative because he was the poppy everybody got something to sniff from. That was the life that I equated to. That was a negative. I indulged in that space after not realizing I did it at the time, but I can say it now. That's what, if I can't explain it, that's enlightenment. If I can't explain the feeling, that's the enlightenment, or you coming online. That's why you get that thrill of that feeling. But if you don't understand that, if you don't understand the indulgence, like everything else is temporary, you get attached to whatever it is. Now you search for that to be your release. That means you're taking it back from the negative. You took that negative into your positive. So I took the aspects of my father's lifestyle, being a dealer, being out there in the street, being known by everybody. I took his negative and pulled it into my positive. So then I became attached to it. So as long as he was sustained, there, as long as my uncles was around, as long as motherfuckers needed some shit, all my five senses are things that control my emotions. As long as I was in that space and everything was there, it was positive. So it served me a purpose. But in my mind, I was still activating on the aspect of it being good. So I was telling myself that it's good because I'm making money and I'm around I was doing nostalgic shit. I was living in a loop of nostalgia. Like, I'm around my father, I'm around family members, I got money, I'm able to pay for college in full, I'm able to do all of these things. So I'm indulging in it based on attachment because I made it positive. So when the reset came, that naturally reset comes into our lives, it's going to automatically take it all back. It's going to take it back to its original starting point, which was the negative. It's going to feed that polarity and go back to that space. Now, my mind, now, as we step forward and as we grow and move forward, so now I'm moving forward. Now, when I look at that aspect in my past life, of that was a negative, motherfuckers would say that was a negative, nigga, that was very positive for me. I'm looking at it because that's me bringing it into my favor. Bringing it into my favor is the lesson learned. When you're bringing things into your favor, it's the lesson learned. The lesson that you learned is the light, i.e. the energy that you're bringing from that space. That's you bringing shit into your favor. The more that you train your mind to look at things from both sides, that positive and the negative, and seeing how it served you, if it doesn't serve you, this is how you start bringing these things into your favor. Like motherfuckers looking like right now, motherfuckers are mad that Trump in office, the ballot and all that shit. That shit ain't got nothing to do with me. Don't give a fuck. Because if I look at the beginning of Trump's policies as an example, if I use the beginning of Trump's policies, Trump is about the aspects of giving money to the business owner and the ownership mentality. Pushing the ownership mentality. Own your shit. This takes me out of the aspects of that becomes a positive. And on the negative end, his entire campaign was on propaganda based on re-emerging something that's bringing. He didn't re-emerge anything because they can't recharge anything. They only can bring light. They can only bring light. So his whole propaganda campaign was showing motherfuckers were that this lit motherfuckers be racist or whatever the fuck they wanted to be. That's a negative. That would be a negative to some people, but it serves me a purpose because now I'm seeing, as I've said it before, that nigga lets you see exactly what the fuck humanity really is. It's a bunch of isms. It's a bunch of isms connected to a certain standard to live within a certain space. So that nigga, that served me perfect. That served me. So now that I have an understanding of my positive and my negative points, now I can bring it into my favor in charge. So now every time someone says something about Trump, I still haven't got a Trump hat. I wanted to get a Trump hat. I think I'm going to get one. Now, every time someone says something about Trump, I can go set a candle up. I can set a candle. I would go grab a MAGA hat. I would go grab a Trump flag. I would go put a Trump flag on I put the Confederate flag on my Instagram one time. I can put a Trump flag on my timeline and write something under it. I can put feed from everything under it. I know that in the aspect of others not being on that, not being able to exhort that level of light, I know I could get individuals that would put 700 comments under my shit talking about I'm a coon and all of these aspects. And I would look at them. They would say I'm a coon and a sellout and all that shit. I'll look at it and I'll say, Ashe, 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 you right. Because that's their perception based on the narrative of being black. I am of black. I'm fucking green. I'm a fucking Martian. I've been a Martian since I was like 16 and I realized I was a Martian. So that becomes my point to feed from. So now I can go look at that right there and I'll be like, whew, I got 777 comments all calling me a coon. I'll share. Because I'm not looking at it based on the emotional content. It's everything that you're doing based on connection naturally in your favor is naturally going to do everything that it needs to do within that space. Trusting yourself, because having that trust in yourself goes back to the honesty in yourself. So now you can trust the process. So if I put that out there, I'm trusting the process. If I lose 17 followers and it's in my favor because I'm not attached to anything. I'm not attached to it into the aspect of, damn, man, I ain't got no followers. Now, if I put up it makes me because it's going to take me, that space is going to put me into the mindset of like, what the fuck do I need to do next? That's going to put me in the mindset of like, okay, cool. I guess since I did that, I didn't get what I needed from it, so I'm not charging from it. I can't take from it because I don't understand the negative and the positive. I don't understand the negative and the positive. I haven't brought myself into the honesty of, how does this really affect me? Because it really don't affect me. Why don't it affect me? I'm asking myself these questions for deeper understanding. Oh, it don't affect me because I have an understanding of, I'm the original body of light. These are just reflections. If it resonates with me, that means I'm in conflict with it. That means it's something that I need to adjust myself for. And the more that you're doing this for yourself and you're disciplining yourself in this manner, understanding the negative or the dark, or understanding the positive, which would be the light. Your negative is the aspect of your wisdom that's going to show you how to create your boundaries. Your positive is going to show you how to make your standard, just based on what side of the space it is. Like the key aspect is, I don't want to be perceived. I don't want to be liked. If I'm liked by everyone, that means I'm not doing the work. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to be doing, because my goal is to move from the attachment of the need that's in my subconscious mind to be liked by everyone. I'm chaos. I am a vehicle of chaos. I am a titan. I am a chaos being. I am the villain. So for them, being the villain is negative. For me, being the villain is very positive. This is how I'm naturally feeding from. If I set a boundary and they say that I've changed and I'm not doing shit the right way or whatever it may, I'm not doing shit the way they're used to me. You're not doing the same things you do anymore, and they fall off. That serves my purpose. That's me feeding. On the larger scale of you feeding, the only way that you can truly feed is once you have your auric field in order. Once you understand your auric field, you have strengthened your auric field, you have learned how to create your body of light, fill your body of light, and project yourself, and you're projecting yourself outside of the emotions. This is the aspect of disciplining, because most of us in that space, we project ourselves through our emotions. Our projection is perceived through our emotion. So our return, or what we feed on, is based on the emotion. That's when you're looking at the lower level aspects of motherfuckers that haven't healed, that are stuck within that congealed state of being an energy vampire, succubus, or an incubus. They're only moving off their emotions, i.e., or their urges. Your emotions at an imbalance, they create the space for your urges. So now you're feeding off of your urges. So your urges feed your vices, and your vices are your addictions. You're turning all of that shit backwards. So I'm no longer addicted to attention. So I don't need this vice for attention. So my vice became a virtue as I'm coming into detachment. Now I have the virtue of detachment. Now I'm going back into myself to remove these filters of how I need to get my energy to myself. So that's what I said. When I go to the gym, I'm not insecure. I'm not looking for anything. I'm in there. I got a mission. I got a purpose when I come in for my hour and 45 minutes. since I'm open to my tune, since I'm in tune to my shit, when I'm in the space, I'm naturally going to be now I don't even have to say, now at this point in time, I ain't even got to say, man, I feed from all of this energy. I can just simply, devilish grin enters my face, time to feed. And then I'm feeding from the chaos of motherfuckers running around, lifting their weights. I'm just feeding from it. And I'm just naturally sitting there in that position because my core, because I'm now intact and in balance. I can indulge in things without becoming, I can indulge in it because I'm not addicted to anything. Indulgence becomes a negative aspect when I'm using it as the attention, or it's attached to an emotion, or it's attached to a feeling that I need to feel good. I need to feel good about myself. I need to see myself in a certain manner. That indulgence becomes a negative. When I'm using my indulgence based on I'm already detached, I'm not dealing with individuals, I'm not having these same conversations with people, it becomes a positive. Therefore, I can go into that space. I go into that space, do what I need to do, and I can leave out. It's like going to the grocery store on an empty stomach. You go into the grocery store on an empty stomach, you're going to have a bunch of shit in that cart that you did not need because you did not address your hunger before you went in there. So now you're feeding the negative aspects, or the human, you're feeding the identity aspect of your hunger, or you're feeding your ego. So now you're questioning things based on your ego. So now you'll see everything in that motherfucking store look brand fucking new. Ooh, nigga, they got a new Twinkie that got glitter in it. You go grab the Twinkie. Now you stopped up in your nose and shit. And you're like, nigga, I'm all stopped up because I ate that fucking, I know I shouldn't ate that fucking Twinkie. You know better. You just have to actually instill that concentration into doing better. That changes your this is another aspect of changing your frequency, because until you do the shadow work to clear your aura, you do the aura clearing, you do your chakra alignment, you start doing that work, until you actually start doing the programs of that work. When you're going into a space, you're naturally either being fed on, because in this space, you're either being, when you study the Gnostics, you're either being fed upon or you're feeding. You're doing one of two things. As long as you're down here, you're either being fed upon or you're feeding. The feeder understands the filters at this level are based on emotion. The emotions being imbalanced. The higher state of yourself understands feeding is going to be your emotions have become balanced. You understand both sides, the positive and the negative. And now you can sit there and be like, you know what? I can go to that family gathering and they're going to say ignorant shit. But now I don't have to feel bad when I say I'm not going to go. So then everybody can say, motherfuckers can be like, I use it for an example. On my shirt, you can get this shirt on my site. You can get this shirt from the site. I got Baphomet on the front of my shirt. I got Baphomet on the front of my shirt. I got my pinnacle. I got my stones. I got everything on me. Everything's invoked as an aspect of me. My light, who I am, what I am. I am what I am. I am self. I am law. Everything on me is based on that narrative. So when I go into a space and individuals look at my shirt, for example, they look at my shirt and all they see is horns. They'll say, "Oh, nigga, that's the devil." That's their lowest level of aspect of understanding this body of light. So while I'm standing there in that space, and motherfuckers are standing back there saying, that nigga got the devil on his shirt. That nigga a devil worshiper. He got long nails and he got crystals on his neck. That nigga a witch. That nigga a witch. That nigga a warlock. All that shit's right. Because that's their level of light. I don't have to convince them of anything. Even if they ask me a question, I still don't have to convince them of anything. What's being showed or showcased in that space is a time for me to indulge in feeding the masses or feeding them information. That's how I'm emptying myself into the space. And then when I leave, I can go fill myself back up. Now I'm in there like, nigga, let me feed my shit. Let me feed myself. Let me fill my cup. Let me empty this cup real quick. It's time for me to empty this and go out there into the world and do shit. This is the true aspect of moving within the aspect of the spirit. Whenever you like, nigga, I do everything in the spirit because I am the spirit. At this point in time, I'm just projecting myself down into this space to do what the fuck I need to do when I leave. There's no hard feelings. There's no ownership. I don't need to own anything down. What the fuck am I owning down here? I got houses. I created whole houses, whole vehicles, whole spectrums. I got whole fucking worlds on my fucking plate. Everything down here is just fucking appetizers. That feeding aspect, everything down here becomes an appetizer as long as I'm down here for the little bit of time that I'm down here. That's the indulging as a God indulges. Because you're not doing it based on feeling good. You're not doing it on a state of release. You're already in the space that you're at. Me being a shaman, the aspects of me understanding death and the transition, every shaman has to go through an aspect of death in order to go into the other world. So for me, I remember the first time I died on the operating table, I was 18. I was gone for 2 minutes. The second time that I died, I was 24. Died for 3 minutes on the operating table. So I had 2 death experiences in this life cycle. In those moments of death, I remember I saw some of the most trippiest shit on the fucking planet. Nigga, I was scared out my fucking mind. But then I come to a moment like now and I'm like, I needed those moments to happen. While most people are worried about, most people want to skip steps. Most individuals want to skip steps. They want to skip steps and they want to be like, I'm going to do this instead of this, or I'm going to do this instead of this because I don't feel like taking the steps that are necessary for me to get to that point. But the first step that you got to take is shadow work. Working on the internalizing of unlocking yourself. Because before you do any of that, it don't matter what ritual, what spell you do, it's going to lead you back to your shadow work. Everything you're going to do is going to lead you right back to your shadow work. Everything is based upon the energy signature that signature that you writing up and you put on the fucking paper. When you sign the petition, when you make the contract, when you make your sigil, everything's based upon your energy anyway. That's why I always laugh when individuals talking about, yo, man, I'm gonna put a hex on somebody. You about dumb as hell. Do you know in order to put a hex on somebody, your energy got to be tied into the spell to put it on them? In order for it to bind, it needs to have a binder. You're the binder of the spell. So why would I waste time doing low-level shit and then expecting my life to get better? Most people hex themselves just by speaking the words of giving a certain entity a name as a sense of ownership. That's my best friend. Your best friend ain't been shit since you met them. But you gave them a title and they're going to live under that definition of that contract of what you call a best friend based on trauma bonding. That's my it's been my sister all my life. They will accept that title and use that to their advantage to feed from that aspect of your identity. This is when you have to start, this is the aspect of questioning everything. Your family members is family members based upon trauma. So if you start working on the trauma, are they still, i.e. your family? No, they're related to you. Now that you've emptied your cup of what was your family, and now you have a relation, so you have an understanding that's relation, now you can fill your cup up with your soul tribe, your soul family, your soul bonds, and your soul, everything that's to your soul tribe and to your higher vibration fills that cup. But if you're still filling your cup with the old aspects, trying to say, here, drink from this cup, then you wonder why your shit keep going the same way. Why don't you have $1 million? The false sense of ownership, due to that false sense of pride, is what has a lot of people locked into a certain position. Looking for one addiction or another to exist or to have a release, to have that feeling. Like this is a therapeutic thing for me. So by the end of a lecture, I'm like so fucking, my dopamine levels are so fucking high. My DMT that is being released through my body is so fucking high that I'm literally feeding off of sharing information. I'm subconsciously feeding off of sharing the information. I'm indulging the emptying of my cup. I love emptying my cup. I love coming on here every Friday emptying my cup. I love being able to create I love being able to actually create what I do. I love being in that space. But in order for me to be into this space, it took that amount of working on myself. In order to be able to embrace the knowledge of self, my royal lineage, my priesthood, I was a Gnostic priest. I was heavy in Pallades with the aspects of music. I'm understanding these aspects of myself. I was always into the trickster aspects, providing the choices and warranting your decisions based on the underworld. That's the Osirian energy. The Osirian energy goes all the way to the Dionysus energy. The Dionysus energy aspect for me, and understanding that was why my mom's favorite, my mother archetype, her favorite artist, she loved Prince to fucking death. That's why she gave me my middle name that stemmed to Dionysus, that the full aspect was Dionysus, because the purple rain. The reason I came through the fucking divine belt under February, because the original birthstone for February was amethyst, so I was always into that intuitive aspect of myself. This is when you start breaking your shit down and you start seeing your etheric body in front of you. And once you understand, you're like, nigga, I can indulge in this, and this. This is my garden. This is the garden. Most people see it as their hell. Nigga, this is hell for me. This is my garden. This is my Eden. I created an Eden here. I have like 7 to 8 different Edens, all for different purposes in my higher self. This is just one reflection of my Eden. This is boundaries are naturally set based on other niggas. Niggas are gonna think what they're gonna think. Niggas gonna be niggas. Bitches gonna be bitches. They'll be like, nigga, that nigga worship the devil. Nigga, I don't worship shit. I worship myself. I honor myself. I give deep reverence to myself in my growth. If you ain't willing to do the same thing if you ain't willing to go through the process and equivalent to the one I'm going through, then you can stay where the fuck you at. That boundary worked. I put brick dust around this entire apartment in my fucking mind. That's why certain people don't come over here. And when they do come over here, anybody that come over here literally is, when they step through the door, they're locked within a childlike mindset. Easy for me to do whatever I need to do. They're stuck in a childlike mindset. When they leave, they're human again. But they're naturally within a childlike mindset. All they can do is smile and tell the truth. All they can do in here is smile and tell the truth. Lies don't leave my lips, so lies can't leave their lips. That's the programming. You can look motherfuckers in the eye and literally look at them and program anything you want into their mind. It's not good or bad. It's only negative. It's only on a lower aspect of manipulation. Isn't good or bad. It's negative or positive, depending on how you're using it. If I'm using manipulation for positive aspects, it's always going to be a higher science. I'm using it from the higher science aspect, as opposed to a person using manipulation. If you're using it on a lower aspect, you must add another conduit to it to be able to use it in that space. 1 second. Go back. When you're using things on lower narrative, on a lower space, you must inquire the ingredients to complete that formula down to this lower level. So since I use manipulation, I manipulate time, I manipulate all this shit to my advantage, my favor. I don't have to use lower aspects of things. And that's what I was going to say. When people are using the aspects of manipulation on lower levels, they must keep an individual at a lower level than them. So when you're in a space and when you're dealing with an individual that you actually can provide, like you actually came in, the reason that the lower individual can connect to you is because you were already you were on that frequency, but you were at a higher level in that frequency. There were still things. That's how they were still able to connect to you and say things to you. So they only can use something based on emotional, physical, or mental. So they have to keep your mentality. They have to keep you emotionally imbalanced. They have to keep you at a mental imbalance, or they have to keep you at a physical imbalance. Those are the three ingredients. It has to be tied to emotion, mental, or physical. So when you think about the aspect of destroy the mind, keep the body, yeah, that aspect. Fuck the mind, keep the mind, destroy the body, use the body up, keep the mind. That's what most people do at this space in a negative aspect. Keeping you in bad and good so you never can aspire to be positive and negative, understanding the polarity. Keeping you stuck within the correspondence of that polarity. Keeping you stuck in the polarity. Now you choosing a side. And then you get to the highest that you get to in contradiction and constriction is the lesser two evils. There's the unknown and the known. Both of these can serve me a purpose. This is the known. This is the unknown. It's only unknown until I know it. It's only known until I don't know something about it. So the reason we keep the unknown around us is for the aspect of we'll always be able to aspire to know something. And the reason most people keep the known around them is for the fear of going into the unknown. That's the polarity, the correspondence within that space. So you'll keep whole droves of people around you. You can have 50 million people on your fucking Instagram right now. Your Instagram, on your Twitter, on your Facebook, on your timeline right now. All talking about the same exact shit. And you'll feel like you're a part of something. That's the bad thing. You're not supposed to feel of, not a part. I can go down my timeline and I can literally heart everything on my timeline because I have an understanding of it. Like, damn, I like that. That's funny. I can go through it like that. You can notice this is a training exercise. The next time you go on your Facebook page or your Instagram don't count because everything's hard. Go on your Facebook page, and why won't you hit like on a certain thing? Why are you only hitting likes on certain things? I remember one time for myself, I was like, I don't want to, because I don't want them to think that I like them long. If I heart all their stuff, then they're gonna think I want something from them. As long as you're creating that mindset, this is what's gonna happen in correspondence. You hearten everything since you created that reality in your mind. So now when you actually like somebody, you take this thought process to stay in constriction and you start hearting all their shit. Or now somebody hearts all of your shit. And then you sitting there like, ooh, they must like me. When in reality, they just simply just hearted all your shit because they really had a sense of love for what the fuck you said. While in that same whole other aspect, somebody sitting on the other side, they're doing it just because you created that thought form. 16 other people created that thought form, and that became the normal program. It's all in your programming. It's all in your mindset. It's all in what you're doing as you move forward. I'm a billionaire in here. In a couple weeks, I'll be a trillionaire in here. And since I've advanced my mindset from the millionaire mindset to the billionaire mindset, and I'm going to go to the trillionaire mindset, when it matriculates, the first thing that's going to come up is going to be the millionaire aspects based on my energy. So now when the millions come up, I'm already trained myself on what I would do with the millions. I already know exactly what I would do with millions. I've already trained myself on what I would do with billions. So however the billions come to me, however the millions come to me with the never aspect that it come to me, I'm already trained myself and disciplined on what I'm going to do with it. Because I'm already in a space where I'm in owner mentality. So I can own everything within that space. That's your ownership. That's your favor. That's you being this is you moving in that divine favor. This is the aspects of going into the indulging. This is you being able to walk into a space, do what you need to do, and get out. I can go into that empty church, sit down on a wooden pew, just sit down on the pew, and just open myself up and just take in all the energy. Because my filter is going to filter out all the shit that I don't need, and it's going to let me get pure, unadulterated, untainted energy wherever I go. But this is only after you learn how to charge. This is also after you must first learn how to charge yourself before you can do that. It's a process. Once I understand myself, once I've removed the shadows and expand into the shadows and eternalized, and now I'm meditating more, and I'm taking my meditation into astral projection. I'm taking my astral projection into my dream. I'm taking my astral projection into my dream walking, because you're always advancing. That's the same thing whenever, now that my chakras are in alignment, I know, now that I understand my chakras, let me get the next 7. Now that I got the 7 that are in my body, the 7 that are in my etheric body, let me start studying the chakras that are in my hands. Let me study the chakras that are in my hands. Or go grab a book on palm. Got a book. Oh, shit, right here. Let me understand the chakras that are within my hands. Or palm reading. Or I'll go grab a book called Palmistry. This one is by Roberta Vernon. This is how I understand the chakras that are within my hands. Let me go grab a book. Let me go grab a book on anatomy, or let me go grab a book on feet, because that's the sole of my foot. That's my grounding. So that's the grounding aspect of my soul and connected to my soul in here. So if I'm walking, what am I doing to my soul? Everything becomes an aspect, is I'm grabbing the information into deeper understandings of myself. You're not doing it to sustain anything down here. You're doing the shit. Everything you're going to do is going to break shit down, because you're going from ending to beginning. Everything you're doing is going to break shit down. It's going to fuck shit up. I can't come into until I had to literally I had to sigil all the electronics that I use in my crib, because when I go into the space after when I come back from the gym, or when I set up my altar, or whenever I'm doing shit of that nature, shit just stop acting fucked up. Like, I literally had to sigil my computer. I had to sigil this laptop so that when I do the lecture or do anything using the webcam on this computer, when I hit go live, the shit go live instantly now. That's where my energy's at. I'm bringing everything that serves me to my level. If it doesn't serve me, it can't come up here. This is penthouse shit. This is the healing center. Come get healed. That's what I was talking about. When you go to a church and you think about the steeple, the whole aspect of the whole matrix of the steeple, all the energy goes up because everybody's looking at the preacher, putting all the energy into the preacher as he speaks. And when he closes the book, all the energy comes back down and he shoots that shit back out. And he shoots it back out in a negative sense to manipulate, to close down the book so you're locked back into space. Now you got to keep coming back to that space. That's why if you go into a church, that's why when they talk about the unhallowed grounds, you're not wanted here, you're not welcomed here, you're not blessed to be here. That's the aspect of keeping you not dealing with the shadow. All of these aspects are just allegories and not dealing with the shadow. So if I go into it, I remember it was funny. I had a cook that worked for me. He was an older guy. He cut meat for us. And I remember he said he needed me to drive him to the church. And he used to joke about it, but it was a subtle seriousness to it, because in every joke there's actually truth in the joke. He was like, "You ain't gonna burst in the flames, you going to the church grounds, are we?" I was like, "Nah." And I remember the exit gate was open. And we had to go through the exit gate, and we didn't go through the inner gate. I was like, "I'm good. You just took me through the wrong gate anyway." He looked at me with this look on his face like, damn, I let the devil into the church. I was like, yep. We laughed about it, went on about my business. Those become the memories that I understand how to indulge from. I was already doing it. That becomes your need to feed. Feeding on lower level of aspects. That's why you look at people that go to church in their aspect for going there, regardless of whatever it is, boil it down to the truest point. That's where they're going to go feed. They haven't accepted that fact about themselves. That's your reflection. The reason that they go to the church is to feed. They don't know how to charge themselves. The reason that you don't have to go, or you don't have the necessary need to go, is because you don't need to feed. You know how to charge yourself. So a lot of the things that we've been doing, you've been doing unconsciously you've been doing unconsciously the entire time. Is now you're just turning that shit on. That becomes the example when we start talking about aspects of when you do your diet and you go plant-based and certain shit shut off and certain shit turn on. It's the same aspect and same synonymous flow of when you start meditating, you're turning certain shit off and you're turning certain shit on. When you take your first ayahuasca trip, or you take a mushroom trip, or you take an acid trip, or you smoke weed, or you pour libation and you get fucked up. When you're doing it based on release, when you're doing it based on release, you don't obtain anything. So if I do an ayahuasca trip now, if I would just do another ayahuasca trip now, everything that I've read and everything that I've downloaded over the last, we'll say, a month, that's what my mind is going to connect to. Because I'm not doing the ayahuasca to release, because I'm already released. I'm already released. I'm already gone. So what I'm doing is bringing myself to this. I'm bringing my physical mirror in alignment with my spiritual mirror. So now I see everything in clear reflection within this space. As opposed to most motherfuckers, they want to go get high and get drunk just as a release. So they're suppressing an urge. They're actually not even living the urge. They're suppressing the urge. Because the urge is meant to take you to the higher level of discipline of why you're in that urge. Why the fuck is you a hoe? Why the fuck you can't seem to, why you a sex addict? Because you keep looking for the release of the aspect, like maybe there's something I'm not missing. There's something I'm missing. That's why I keep going back to this one point. There's something I'm missing. Because once you understand the whole tantric aspect, once you understand the tantric and the higher aspects of sexual alchemy and what it actually is, you ain't going. All you're gonna want to do is do sex magic, and you can do 90 of it. You can do 90% of it by yourself. You can find the binaural for inducing sex algorithms or releasing that aspect in your mind. Lay there, lay back, sit there, meditate, lay back, breathe in, put an image in your mind, and create that entire scenario in your mind. Becoming if you want to fuck with if you a chick and you want to embrace Kali energy, you envision yourself in being Shiva. If you was a dude and you want to embrace the Baron Samni energy, then you would envision yourself as the feminine aspect as Mama Brigitte. That's the tantric aspect. That's a whole nother lecture. But then you're taking the negative, you're taking what would be negative in the human aspect into the positive into your higher aspect, and you're using it to interface. That's the favoring aspect. That's how you become the energy. That's how I became Papa Lucifer. Because I had to first, to become the Lucifer archetype, I had to understand the Lilith energies that's within my chart. So I had to interface with the feminine aspect or the wisdom or the sacred whore aspect that's Lilith in order for me to become Lucifer. Because Lucifer in most cultures is actually the feminine aspect. That's why if you saw the soul Lucifer and this nigga was like nigga didn't give a fuck. The nigga was fucking niggas and bitches on the show is because they were giving you the aspect. They were trying to degrade the aspect in plain sight and letting you know that nigga, that's an energy. That's an androgynous energy. That's one half of the energy. Embracing the other half of the energy is the only way to use it to its full extent. So then that's when you got to break the nigga being gay in our culture. Nigga, we're androgynous. Being a god is androgyny. So by default, you have to have the other side of the example, which would be the extreme of being the homosexual preference as opposed to the singular aspect or being into the opposite. You need that aspect in order to understand any way to go higher up. So you stuck on, nigga, they ain't in our culture. They ain't in our culture. Nigga, you'll never become a god. I'm sorry. I'm not. You'll never become a fucking god. Because you stuck on, nigga, that's gay. Nigga, you androgynous. You the masculine and the feminine in perfect balance, nigga. So that shit don't work for you. That shit ain't got nothing to do to you. Let them do what they need to do based on their understanding. Stop getting sucked in and attached to shit they ain't got. Man, there's an agenda. They're trying to emasculate the black man and they trying to make them, they trying to do the feminism movement and all of this shit. Nigga, that shit don't have nothing to fucking do with you. You mad at the feminist movement because you upset with the feminist movement because you have a bad relationship with your fucking mother. You walk around calling all these niggas toxic because you had a bad relationship with your fucking father. Be honest with yourself. Be real with yourself. I can promise you it'll be the best thing you ever did. Guaranteed. If you look in the comments, I got services, the readings, and the products. GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com. You have questions, you can drop them, just that question and answer period right now. GodaCoAlchemistLLC.com. I have the new services, including the readings, including the new price list for the readings, the consultation, and everything of that nature. Book something, get that started. For clothing and merchandise, such as the aspects of, I got tapestries on there now. The new tapestries, if you've seen it on my Facebook or you follow me on Co Alchemy on my Instagram, you see that the new those rectangles, those are the tapestries. I'm waiting on my samples to actually take more live pictures of them. But those are the tapestries. Co Alchemy, sweatshirts, all that new shit is available. New merch is on there. Grab it off there. If the message moved you, support the growth. Elusive Assignment is the Cash App link. That's also the link that if you want to do a reading, hit me up. Drop the Cash App. Tell me what kind of reading you want. What kind of reading you want to do. Clarity reading, general reading, and we do the price and we go from there. I just want to see you be fucking great. I just want to see you be the fucking best. My mouth is dry as hell. I ain't drinking like 5 bottles of water. But the key to your rise is to actually understand that that was the end. Do I got time? Let me see. What time is it? I want to say yeah, but it's no because I got 4 readings. I got 4 readings coming up right after this. I'm open tomorrow. I'm open basically tomorrow from like 12. I'm open tomorrow from 12, and I'll say till about 9 p.m. If you want to link up tomorrow and do your consultation, because that's a long overdue aspect. While y'all are deciding, I'm about to. Oh God, that tastes great. You just water. Heard. Of course. But the whole process of what you're doing as you move forward, I think since we got into those aspects of that peeped out a little bit, I think that'll be next week's lecture, next week's class. I'm gonna have the PDF. I'm working on putting together the classes and the synopsis for the classes to have them available at top or mid of next year. So keep it available for that. When you go to God Alchemist, you follow me on Facebook, you follow me on IG. The link for the app to actually download the app. The app is good for the blog posts, changes, new services added, all those alerts. Stay up to date with all the alerts, everything that's happening in the world of the Gotical Alchemist, scheduling, setting it all up, seeing what you want to do. The first aspect is to set that appointment and set yourself to grind. I'm mad high right now just because of this. I'm just mad fucking high right now. Ooh, they didn't even do nothing. But yeah, this is not your ending. For the one that is afraid to change, this will be their end. This is only your beginning. Welcome to the quantum state. I had something else to say, but I just forgot. Yeah. But yeah, support. Buy some merch. Set up an appointment. Set up a reading. I'm about to get in and do these readings real quick. I'll see y'all next time. I love you. We love us. Ashe.